platforms. My name is Garfield Burford. A warm welcome to the ROYALTON Resort, Antigua, as we provide you with live and extensive coverage in Antigua, Barbuda, and across the OECS of the 78th meeting of the OECS Authority. Joining me for our broadcast, extensive coverage of this major event is lovely Anthony. Miss Anthony is the head of communications for the OECS Commission. Miss Anthony, welcome. Thank you so much for joining us for our broadcast.
Thank you very much, Mr. Bovon. It's certainly a special occasion to be here with you this afternoon at the OECS Authority opening ceremony right here in Antigua and Barbuda.
Absolutely. Let's talk about the significance of the occasion, the significance of the moment. One of them, of course, the fact that Prime Minister, the Right Honourable Gaston Brown, will assume the chairmanship of the OECS Authority for a period of a year. It rotates. Let's talk about the significance of this meeting and what does this mean for us?
Well, we're delighted to gather here in Antigua and Barbuda for this important occasion. Obviously, we have heads of government coming here to join us today. We have regional leaders, development partners, members of the diplomatic corps, representatives from regional and international organizations, and of course members of the media and invited guests from across the OECS and beyond, right here in Antigua. So it is a significant occasion today.
Absolutely. And in terms of the issues that will be discussed at these authority meetings of the OECS, what are they likely to be in terms of regional integration, I suppose, will be a big one, right?
Well, the first thing we want to recognize is that this year is one of significance because the OECS is celebrating 45 years of regional integration, cooperation and shared progress. Just to remind the audience that on June 18th, the Treaty of Bastia was signed, establishing the OECS Union, the OECS, and of course it's been 45 years. It's a special occasion for us, and all of that coincides with the authority meeting here today.
Good. So it's a momentous occasion, given that it's the 45th anniversary of the founding of the OECS. 16 years ago as well, there was another significant occasion with the signing of the revised Treaty of Bastia in 2010 to make way for an economic union. Let's talk about the significance of an economic union. What does that mean for us?
Well, the OECS Authority remains the highest decision-making body of the organization.
Right.
Now, 16 years ago, when that body decided to form the economic union, they created a pathway now among 7 member states that now allows for free movement within the OECS, which was a very, very significant milestone.
Absolutely. Fantastic. Let's talk about as well the number of heads who are going to be here gathered in Antigua for this event. Most of the heads, I take it, will be here?
Yes, we're expecting most of the heads here and all their representatives will be here with us for the next 2 days.
Very good. And of course, today is the opening ceremony, but we expect that the discussions among the heads will take place tomorrow, correct?
Yes, so tomorrow we're expecting that we will have the session of caucus and also the plenary session where a lot of diverse discussions will take place.
Indeed. Let's look at it as well. It's a week of activities. Several activities have been held to mark the 45th anniversary of the OECS, which of course was the 18th, so that's a few days ago. So you were able to engage in quite a lot of discussions and activities here in Antigua Barbuda. Let's talk about some of those because you were front and center, lovely, in some of those, including school visits.
Yes, it was quite an exciting week. We went out and we visited the St. Nicholas Primary School. It was really an engaging session with the students. There were a lot of intelligent questions being asked. I actually felt that the Director General needed to be present to answer some of these questions. The students are quite intelligent. We spoke with them about the history of the OECS and regional integration in the Caribbean in general, and that was quite a good discussion. We then moved to the fun walk, the annual fun walk. We did have the fun walk in collaboration with the medical
benefits,
MBS,
yes, medical benefits scheme, absolutely.
And that was very successful. I think everybody who participated in the fun walk had fun, but they also got to learn about regional integration in the OECS. And we moved on Friday to the public service consultation, We met with immigration officers, police officers, youth officers, and persons from across ministries. And it was another very engaging session with our public service stakeholders that I think left them a lot more enlightened as to their role in the implementation of the economic union.
Very, very good. And of course, you seem to have enjoyed that engagement with the students. They were asking a lot of questions. They were very keyed in and very engaged, weren't they?
Yes, they were. I always enjoy these sessions with the students because the students are fun and the presentation is quite creative. It's in the form of a question and answer. And so we get to find out how much they know about regional integration. And they knew quite a bit.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. And of course, that was at the St. Nicholas Primary School. For those who are just joining us, we're giving you live and extensive coverage. We haven't started the events yet, so what we're expecting today is the opening ceremony of the OECS Authority's 78th meeting. So the 78th meeting of the OECS Authority, the opening ceremony takes place. It's scheduled for 4 p.m. Might be a little bit of a late start, but of course we're making sure that we're welcoming you across, not just Antigua and Barbuda, but across the entire OECS. For those who are just joining us, lovely, let's talk about the numbers of countries and territories, because there are protocol members and there are associate members of the OECS. Explain protocol members and the associate members and how many in all.
All right, so in all we have 12 member states, and of course we have 7 protocol member states. These are the member states who are signed on to the revised Treaty of Basel and are part of the Eastern Caribbean Economic Union. So these member states would of course include Antigua and Barbuda, St. Lucia, Dominica, Grenada, Montserrat, that is the only overseas territory who is actually a full member state and a protocol member state. We have St. Vincent the Grenadines, St. Kitts and Nevis, all Grenada, all part of the Eastern Caribbean Economic Union that we refer to as the OECS Economic Union.
Right, so those are the 7 protocol members.
Yeah.
There are also associate members, including most of the British overseas territories in the region, right?
Yes, so we have Anguilla, we have the British Virgin Islands, and we have our French-speaking member states, Martinique, Guadeloupe, and most recently we were joined by French Saint Martin, who joined the OECS.
Excellent. And of course, Montserrat is an interesting example, Montserrat, because like with the situation with CARICOM, of the 15 full members of CARICOM, Montserrat is the only full member which is not an independent country. It is a British overseas territory. The same thing in terms of the OECS, of the 7 protocol members, Montserrat being the only one which is not an independent country.
And let me also add that Montserrat did sign on to the original treaty. So Montserrat was part of the movement from the start. Montserrat did sign on to the original treaty, and when they moved to sign the revised Treaty of Basel, Montserrat was there again to join the Eastern Caribbean Economic Union.
Absolutely. The benefits of being a part of the regional integration movement, such as the OECS, the benefits of being a part of an economic union, which was made possible by the revised Treaty of Basel in 2010. Let's talk about that. What are some of those benefits?
Lots of benefits. We have been able to make quite a bit of progress over the years. We have the freedom of movement that allows persons to move freely throughout the economic union space, and so they are able to travel direct route using a valid government issued ID. When you get to, there are also a lot of contingency rights and benefits that are coming on stream and that are in place as well. So you have the ability to use your driver's license, your valid driver's license that is, to drive within the 7 countries. You have access to public health care. You have access to public education, primary and secondary schools. You also have access to social assistance. So whatever is being offered to the nationals in the particular member states are also extended to nationals within that economic union space.
Excellent. And those are called contingent rights, right?
Contingent rights.
Excellent.
And just to add as well, that these rights also extend not just to the primary citizen, the primary right holder. It extends to their spouses, It expands to their dependents as well. Any dependents that they may have who are primary dependents, persons who are dependent on them, be it a mother, a child, a stepchild, and so forth.
Excellent, excellent. By the way, our viewers will be hearing quite some mellifluous strains behind us, and that is the Antigua Barbuda Defense Force Band, and they're of course making sure that they have they're tuned up properly, because they'll be providing the soundtrack for us during the opening ceremony, which starts in perhaps a few minutes time as well. So the ABDF, the Antigua Barbuda Defense Force Band, practicing, making sure that they have all those notes, the correct notes, making sure that they're striking the right notes. And essentially, there you go, the ABDF band, and of course some splattering of applause there for the ABDF band as well.
Yes, we also have the cadets on standby. They're looking quite sharp this afternoon.
Absolutely.
And they're ready to march in and escort our heads of governments onto the stage.
Very good. And of course, they'll be carrying the flags, of course, the first one being the flag of the OECS, and of course the other member states of the OECS as well. Yes. It's not only the 7 protocol members, right? You have all the other
all the other
member associate member
that
states
are present.
Well. Very, very good. Okay, or should I say the associate members of the OECS? So 12 members, 12 members in all, 7 protocol, and the other 5 being associate members, of course, both British overseas and French overseas territories within the OECS. The economic union and the contingent rights, have they been working well? Because recently Dr. Didicus Jules, the Director General, says that there's still some work to be done in relation to making sure that those work properly. For example, he says that there are some concerns that have been expressed by nationals across the OECS, that when they go to other countries, they should expect basic minimum number of services. They should expect these contingent rights, but he says that there have been complaints. So there's still a lot of work to be done, isn't there?
There is some work to be done. There have been some complaints. I know that our regional integration unit is working very hard to ensure that our immigration officers, our customs officers, and all our public sector stakeholders are trained and informed. And this is why we had this all-important public sector consultation here in Antigua on Friday. And of course, at that consultation, we had some interesting questions. And our immigration officers here in Antigua were, of course, updated as to the best way to manage OECS nationals as they come through the border under different circumstances at that.
Absolutely. Of course, if you're just joining us, live coverage on all our platforms, as well as on the OECS's social media pages, on the OECS's platforms of the 78th meeting of the OECS Authority. This meeting is taking place at the Royalton Resort, Antigua. At this meeting, Prime Minister the Right Honorable Gaston Brown, the Prime Minister of Antigua and Barbuda, will assume the chairmanship for a year, the rotating chairmanship of the OECS Authority. And the Prime Minister, by the way, we're going to be going in a very short while to an interview, an excerpt of an interview I did with the Prime Minister, in which he was looking ahead to some of the issues that he'll be discussing and championing when he takes over the chairmanship of the OECS Authority this afternoon. And of course, some of the issues that he'll be engaging his fellow heads on tomorrow during the meeting of the heads at this 78th meeting. One of those issues is regional travel and the need for example, probably an OECS airline, where he says there's shared burden, shared benefit. In other words, all the member states get to collaborate, get to coordinate their efforts in relation to fixing this challenge of regional travel, which has been a bane of our existence in the region. And he's also looking at energy security as well. What are your views?
Of course, there are several areas by which our member states collaborate. Right. And so there will be on the agenda items from the education sector, from the health sector. They collaborate a lot on agriculture as well, and several other areas apart from interregional travel.
Yes.
That will also be discussed and addressed at the meeting.
Absolutely. By the way, lovely, the Prime Minister says that during his chairmanship for a year, he'll be pushing for frame-breaking initiatives. In other words, he's not just interested in having these regular meetings where people come and they regurgitate the same old discussions and discourses. He's looking for meaningful, impactful action, frame-breaking action in relation to fixing some of the challenges, some of the perennial challenges faced by small states which have come together for this regional integration movement. So we're going to be going to an interview now, excerpts of an interview with Prime Minister the Right Honourable Gaston Brown, speaking about what he expects to be the key issues that he'll be pushing for, the salient, consequential issues that he'll be discussing with his fellow regional heads during the course of the next year when he is the chair of the OECS Authority. Here now, my interview, part of my interview with Prime Minister Brown a few weeks ago.
I've said to my regional colleagues that previous leaders of the OECS, they didn't have the intellectual capital or the financial capital that we have, but they've achieved more. And I've said to them that this type of routine leadership that we have provided, we have to go beyond that. We now have to start to do some frame-breaking things, make some impactful decisions that will not only serve our generation but future generations. Air transportation is one of the areas in which I think that we now have to look at the sustainability of air transportation within the sub-region, and for us to pursue a policy of joint investment, joint burden, and this idea that I have one or two nations trying to provide air connectivity and the others just look on. I mean, that's not an appropriate model. I mean, it has to be one in which we share the responsibility and, of course, the benefits. I also want to look at the issue of energy cooperation among OECS countries. As you know, we have countries within the OECS that they have geothermal energy. St. Kitts and Nevis, for example. We're now in advanced talks with them to determine whether or not we can get geothermal energy from them on the basis they're able to bring it to market and at a commercial rate. And we have said to them too that we'll even participate in the funding. So, within the European Union that they provide grants on the EPA. We've said to them, look, rather than each of us going for small sums, $3 million a piece, that cannot do anything substantive for us. Let us consolidate all of these grants among at least 6 independent nations of the OECS, and ask them also to give us an advance maybe for the next 10 years. And if we can raise a few $100 million in grants and loans, I'm not too sure how much it will cost us, but if we assume it's even $500 million or even $1 billion to get all the cables and so on necessary and connect the various islands, I think that we should be able to amortize such a loan maybe over a period of maybe 5 to 10 years maximum, and would be in a position to drive down the cost of energy, the cost of electricity, and by so doing as well, we'll become far more competitive. So this is the type of collaboration and cooperation I want to see within the OECS. I've even spoken to the Director General about bureaucracy. I think it is grown unwieldy, and we need to see some reformation within the OECS Secretariat itself, and to ensure that the countries get good value for money. And generally speaking, to make sure that there's greater collaboration and cooperation, especially considering the geopolitical challenges, for us to, as far as practicable, make joint decisions and to stand by those decisions. As we've been pursued by certain countries to do things that are even inimical to our own interests, it's important for us to negotiate on a sub-regional basis rather than to go it alone independently. So these are some of the issues that I want to bring to the table. And of course, to encourage greater trust among OECS leaders. The reliability of our words must be important. So, when we give a commitment to do something, we should stand by that commitment, even in terms of having joint representation in certain capitals. That's an issue that we've been speaking to for many years, and we have not quite achieved it, and I certainly want to see how we can accelerate that level of cooperation among OECS countries and OECS heads in particular. So again, we expect it to be impactful and maybe frame-breaking to some extent. Again, I always believe that we always need to make decisions that make a difference in the lives of the people, not just to gather annually on a routine basis and just to regurgitate and to reiterate and to flag and to be very diplomatic, but to make decisions that will make a difference in the lives of the people of the OECS sub-region.
Recent interview with Prime Minister Brown, as he commented some of the frame-breaking issues that he wants to discuss, and the extent to which he wants to make this a transformational stint as chairman of the OECS Authority. So Prime Minister Brown saying that energy security and the need for perhaps some innovative solutions in relation to pooling the resources, the possibly getting a loan together, possibly pooling all of the grants under the economic partnership agreements by the OECS member states, the protocol members, and then possibly getting a loan that can be amortized over 5 to 10 years at a reasonable interest rate, and then possibly looking at increasing energy security, moving towards more renewables in the region, saying that, for example, there can be coordination and collaboration on geothermal energy across the OECS. And then, of course, the very thorny issue of regional travel, which he says he continues to expect that there can be some movement on that during his stint as OECS chairman. So, of course, we look forward to the fact as well that just before you leave us for this part of our broadcast, Lovely, your take on some of the issues that will be discussed against the backdrop of the international challenges that we're faced with.
Well, certainly the 45th anniversary is not only an opportunity for us to celebrate the past, but to look forward to the future. And of course, in the future, there are quite a few of challenges that beset us. So it's an opportunity to look ahead and to look at the challenges facing our region. We look at the issues with climate change as well, is a big issue. The economic vulnerability of food security, energy transition that you mentioned. We do have some work already happening in that sector. We do have an energy unit, and through the GeoBuild project at the OECS, we are already making some steps. As you would know that in Dominica, they would have recently launched the first OECS, well, second to Guadeloupe, I guess within the Eastern Caribbean Economic Union space, the energy plant in Dominica. And so we are looking at several things from technological transformation and other issues that beset us.
Absolutely, which will be, of course, take center stage in the discussions as well.
Most certainly.
Lovely, thank you so much, really appreciate it. Great work, thank you. Let me shake your hand, thank you so much.
Pleasure meeting with you.
And absolutely, let me take this one, thank you, really appreciate it. So that's Lovely Anthony speaking with us right here on ABS as part of our continuing coverage of the OECS 78th Authority, the OECS Authority's 78th meeting. We can now be joined by former Minister for Health, Wellness, Civil Service Affairs, the Environment, and former Senior Minister, former Member of Parliament, long-serving Member of Parliament for St. Mary's North. Now he's exited the political stage, but he continues to be an elder statesman in this country. Talking about Sir Malwyn Joseph. Sir
Thank
Malwyn,
you very
good
much.
to see you.
Thank you.
Good to see you, as always. The OECS, as we get ready for this 78th OECS Authority meeting, Sir Malwyn, the OECS's role in regional development cannot be gainsaid. Let's talk about the history of it, because you would have been there. You came into politics shortly after the OECS came into being in 1981. Let's talk about your own engagement during your time in politics with the OECS.
Well, I recall the beginning of OECS, and I was there with the Honorable Lester Byrd, the Treaty of Bastille.
Right.
The thinking is that as small island developing states, we are better off when we join forces together, fundamentally. We are too small individually to have an impact on the international scene. And so the leaders at that time felt that the formation of the OECS, the meeting was in Bastille, St. Kitts, was the appropriate thing to do. I'm happy to say that we have grown quite a bit. And one of the highlights that has taken place is that OECS countries, the citizens, do not have to get passports to visit each other's country. In Antigua and Barbuda, I can tell you that one of the things that we have been able to achieve in Antigua and Barbuda in the area of healthcare is for access to healthcare by any OECS citizen here in Antigua is seamless. No OECS country is turned down from accessing healthcare in Antigua and Barbuda. That is the main step. When you take it beyond the region now, we now have to appreciate that the world has changed significantly since then. And there's less appreciation by the international community for the difficulties of small island developing states. 5 or 10 years ago, there were some sensitivities, and people recognized that we are vulnerable small island development states by size and vulnerability of our economies. But that appreciation of our circumstances has dwindled. And the new leaders today and ministers must gear themselves, arm themselves at the international meetings, regional meetings, in order to make the case for the people of the OECS. So times are not going to get easier. In fact, it would be more difficult. You take, for instance, the issue that's taking place in the Middle East right now.
Indeed.
And the tremendous impact. You know, it's like when the elephants fight, the grass gets trampled upon.
Indeed.
And that's the vulnerability of the OECS right now. So that message has to get across to the citizens of the OECS, bring them on board so that they can understand the reality of our times.
A final point before we let you go, Sir Malwin. What are some of the issues that you think? What are perhaps the two major issues that you'd want Prime Minister Brown to champion as he takes over the chairmanship of the OECS for the next year?
Number one, healthcare. Healthcare.
And you're close to your
yes,
heart, right?
Of course.
Indeed.
And we have worked quite a bit on the healthcare aspect, and I think we need to jointly improve the healthcare technologies in the OECS and management and accessibility. The fundamental issue is that no one should be denied healthcare because of financial circumstances or social standing. And that message has to get across, and collectively, the OECS states must ensure that the citizens are protected and they're guaranteed health care seamlessly. The other issue is how we balance economic development with the demands on our ecology and our environment. Those two issues are very important. The very thing that we can sell and market, our beaches, our flora and fauna, our peace, safety, those are the things that are most vulnerable at this time. And so we have to make sure that we make those two priorities.
All right. Thank you so much, Sir Malwin. Sir Malwin, really appreciate it. As ever, great work. And thank you so much for continuing to be an elder statesman and to push on these issues, notwithstanding the fact that you're off the political stage. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Really appreciate it. Thank you so much. Sir Malwin Joseph, former Minister for Health, Wellness, Environment and Civil Service Affairs, and of course a former Senior Minister, former Member of Parliament, long-serving Member of Parliament for St. Mary's North as well. We're going to be joined in a short while by the Minister for Foreign Affairs, Trade and Immigration, Honourable E.P. Chet Green. Foreign Minister Green is going to be joining us here on this broadcast. Minister Green, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks.
As ever, really elegant. Really appreciate you joining us.
Happy Father's Day.
Thank you so much, and the very same to you too. Thanks. All right, and we should say a happy Father's Day to all the fathers watching our broadcast here in Antigua, Barbuda, and across the entire OECS. Minister Green, this meeting takes place at a time of tremendous geopolitical flux and an upending of the post-World War II multilateral order. We're pretty much seeing that right in front of our eyes every day. How do the OECS leaders now confront these issues at a time of such tremendous tumult?
Well, I think the very explanation you gave or description of the current or prevailing conditions makes it necessary, absolutely necessary, for OECS leaders to congeal and to revisit the very raison d'etre of our region, or sub-region. And so I think we have an obligation coming of this meeting to leave here more focused, with a better sense of purpose, understanding that we have got to, on our own, as the former Prime Minister Lester would say, raise ourselves by our own bootstraps. The geopolitical realities of the moment literally exclude us. And so we've got to realize that we have to create markets of our own, create a movement, free movement, which is meaningful, real, and certainly contributory to our independence and development. And so I don't think that this challenge is beyond us. It only requires our leaders to rise to the occasion, and deliver to expectations. Because our people do expect that meetings like this one would yield solutions and results.
Absolutely. Prime Minister Brown takes over the chairmanship of the OECS Authority for the next year or so, and of course Antigua Barbuda also the head of the ECCB council as well. It's a kind of propitious coalescence of circumstances because the OECS is facing all these challenges at such an extraordinary time in our continued development. What are some of the biggest challenges you think that the Prime Minister will have to confront during as chairman of the OECS Authority?
The TCN initiative by the USA is certainly an immediate threat and danger.
And of course, that is third country nationals.
Precisely.
Right.
Negotiating this matter with the US continues to be a top agenda item. The whole issue of the fallouts of the recent or the ongoing spat in the Gulf, which will have impacted energy prices and the prices in general, will be a matter for the Prime Minister to navigate in this tenure of chair of the OECS. The central bank will continue to exercise great caution and care in managing these tumultuous times. I do not wish to proffer any idea of anything but continued robust management of the central bank. We have weathered many a storm, and so this is just another one. I think by and large it's going to be managing the bread and butter issues of our people, managing any fallout that may arise from the U.S. TCN program and the war in the Gulf, where it impacts global travel. And if global travel is impacted, then it stands to reason that we'll find ourselves affected as well. And so ministries of tourism, of finance, of national development, of planning, all these ministries will find a challenge in this moment. And so the Prime Minister will have to, with his team, of course, in Antigua, with the management of Central Bank and with the other heads of the OECS, lock horns in developing, designing programs to respond to. And it's a respond because this is what we basically have to do, respond to what comes our way. I think the Prime Minister is also looking at the whole question of the re-engineer of the OECS sports arrangements, because that has great socio-economic and political value. Historically, our region has been a very strong and powerful one in sports, and churning out athletes for global representation is certainly something that we take pride in. There are some who may not be able to connect the dots as to how sports become so prominent and so important a subject. But as we look at the challenges facing OECS countries, we need to have those levels of representation which provide inspiration for people and certainly demonstrate our capacity to pit our skills, academic, athletic and other skills, against the rest of the world to show we're truly deserving of being members of a global community.
Okay. Our final point, Foreign Minister Green, before we get comments from your other colleague, the issue of regional integration. We're seeing a kind of fragmentation of integration movements now because in some parts of the world, in some other parts of the world, there has been a kind of strengthening of those integration movements. But we're seeing a push towards and a move towards greater nationalism, and a push towards greater inward-looking, a kind of isolationist push. For example, that has been made avowedly clear, unapologetically clear by President Donald Trump. Is the OECS and CARICOM, OAS, ALBA, CELAC still fit for purpose?
Well, they're fit for purpose, and will remain fit for purpose to the extent that the leaders look in the opposite direction. That is away from what is being promoted.
Yes.
It cannot be isolationism. It cannot be a deep inward look at nationalism. It has to be that multilateral approach. And in the context of CARICOM and the OECS and the OAS and CELAC and all these organizations which we're part, we've got to come to understand and realize and accept that is together we have any global value. And so I'm really hoping that out of this meeting here in Antigua over the next 2 days, that the OECS leaders will walk away with a renewed sense of commitment to that which started years ago with the creation of the OECS, that we will see the value of dovetailing our efforts into those of CARICOM all the way up to the United Nations as we continue to promote, protect and defend multilateralism. It is the only global architecture that allows for small states like ours to be part of the global community with a voice and some degree of equity and equality.
Minister Green, thank you so much. Really appreciate very, very salient, perspicacious thoughts there on the issue of on the issues which are facing us as small states in the region, and especially facing the OECS for the next year during Prime Minister Brown's chairmanship. Thank you so much. Really appreciate it, as ever. Really appreciate it. That's Foreign Minister Honorable E.P. Chant Green speaking with us right here on ABS. If you're just joining us, continuing live coverage as we get ready for the OECS, this opening ceremony of the OECS Authority's 78th meeting right here. It's taking place at the ROYALTON Resort, Antigua. Of course, this is the 45th anniversary of the Organization of Eastern Caribbean States. June 18, 1981 was when the original Treaty of Basseterre was signed. Of course, that was in Basseterre, the capital of St. Kitts and Nevis. 2010, several years later, several decades later, was when the revised Treaty of Basseterre was signed, making the way for an economic union in the OECS. I'm now pleased to be joined by Minister for Tourism, Civil Aviation, Transportation and Investment, Honorable Charles Max Fernandez. Minister Fernandez, thank you so much for joining us as we get ready for the opening ceremony here. Your take on how the OECS, especially at a time of increasing fragmentation, increasing geopolitical difficulties, can perhaps deepen integration on tourism-related matters, something that is very close to you and very dear to you.
Yeah, and to begin with, there is it is very important, not just for the OECS, but CARICOM, to speak with one voice. We have started to see some fractures appearing, but in the OECS especially, if we can speak with one voice, and the Prime Minister has that opportunity now as incoming chairman, if he can convince and corral the ministers and prime ministers of the OECS that it's important for us to walk lockstep forward, that in and of itself would mean something, I think, for CARICOM.
Excellent. In what practical ways, Minister Fernandez, do you think that the OECS countries can, both protocol members and associate members can work closer together in relation to tourism? Is it, for example, is it an opportunity for destination marketing, for example?
Well, that is supposed to happen through the CTO. But even among the OECS, Minister of Tourism, we also are very much aware that we are considered small island developing states, smaller island developing states. And as a result, I've been trying myself to push to see how we can collaborate together. The issue, though, in terms of not just OECS but CARICOM, is that because you have elections and people change, then the whole narrative sometimes changes. And so that in and of itself is one of the challenges that creates or tends to create a hiccup in terms of working together.
Absolutely. That's on the matter of tourism. Let's talk about the matter of another area under your portfolio, civil aviation. The issue of regional transportation has been the bane of the existence, not only for the OECS, but for the broader CARICOM region, and perhaps even beyond CARICOM as well. Issue for CELAC and so on. How do you think, under Prime Minister Brown said, and by the way, he intends to push very hard on this matter of the OECS airline. What kind of practical ways do you think the region can work towards fixing this problem once and for all, matter of regional transportation?
Well, I think one of the things is that if we're going to do it, all of the islands would have to have some kind of skin in the game. I think that they would have to have some kind of funding involved. And at the same time, has to be public-private. You can't have the governments, as was with LIAT, running, for want of a better term, operating an airline. And you've seen wherever governments operate, invariably doesn't work. You see what's happening now with CAL. So I believe that it's an opportunity for us to really work on this public-private partnership with Airpeace to manage LIAT and carry it forward.
Right. A final point, Minister Fernandez, you're also Minister for Investment. How do we ensure that there can be perhaps greater scale in investment? There might be some ways that the region can work together to attract more investment, because scale is crucially important. Economies of scale crucially important. So, for example, whereas an investment may not necessarily make economic sense in one of the member states with a protocol or associate, it could make greater sense if the region, if the OECS comes together on that. Is this something that you think that should be pushed for as well?
Yes, I think what we need to do is to see if we can streamline our incentive package. So what has happened in the past, I think, is that islands have gone against each other, or governments have gone against each other to compete for investment. And what they've actually done is to water down the whole benefits to the country. And I think that is something that if we can work, I've started to have some discussions on it, if we can work to have a streamlined incentive package, more or less, I think that will augur well for us as a OECS region.
Final point, I did say a final point, but is the OECS in your view still fit for purpose?
Yes, of course. It's very, very important, even if we have to lead the way for CARICOM. If we can be united, then that if we fall apart, then there's no hope for CARICOM. So we need to be the example, the shining light on the hill for CARICOM.
All right. Thank you so much. Well said. That's a powerful point. Really appreciate it, Minister. Thank you so much, and really appreciate it, and all the very best to you as well. That's our Minister for Tourism, Investment, Civil Aviation and Transportation, the Honourable Charles Max Fernandez, speaking with us right here as we continue our broadcast leading up to the opening ceremony of the 78th, the opening ceremony of the 78th OECS Authority meeting as well. We're now joined by the Minister for Social and Urban Transformation, Honourable Gordon Turner, Member of Parliament as well for St. Peter. Minister Turner, thank you so much for being here, and thank you so much for joining us on our broadcast.
Good afternoon to the public.
Indeed.
Watching on television.
Indeed. And of course, not just here in Antigua, but across the entire OECS as well.
Yes,
Indeed.
yes.
Happy Father's Day to you as well.
Thank you.
Indeed. Let's talk about the role of the OECS, for example, from your own perspective, in terms of driving our social and economic development. In other words, is a regional integration movement, in your view, still fit for purpose in terms of helping each of its members to push for social and economic development?
I mean, if we look at what we face today, the geopolitics across the world, I mean, I think it's now more than ever, organizations like the OECS must come together. We as a Caribbean people, we must come together and face what we're facing now on the international scene. I mean, politics globally is not what we saw over the last decade or two. Things have changed significantly. So I believe, I mean, the OECS now, members have to look to each other, to support each other across the region, and to work together to ensure that the Caribbean advances.
Indeed. Let's look at some of the issues that you would want to see, for example, Prime Minister Brown, who assumed the chairmanship today of the OECS Authority, some of the issues that you'd want him to really push on and to really champion during his year in charge of the OECS Authority.
I mean, it's more of a unifying the body. I have to be honest, Burford, I don't think we're as unified as we need to be across the region, and I hope that his message is for unity, for us to work as together and for us to integrate more as a Caribbean people. We must look at the world now as a Caribbean people. Across the Caribbean, we number in the millions. On individual islands, you may have 100,000, 200,000 here and there. So we must, I think our priority must be unity now as a region, so we can speak as one voice across the region and internationally on the international stage.
And in terms of your own areas of social and urban transformation, you're pushing, for example, on these issues of gender equality, gender parity, inclusiveness of young people and so on. You have working alongside you, your junior minister, Honourable Keith Johnson, on some of these issues. How do you think the region can collaborate on these issues at a time when perhaps its attention is being diverted to some of the bigger issues? But because these issues are so fundamental, like gender and youth, engagement.
I think it's more of a deepening the connection that we already have, because we already consult. I mean, ministers for youth and ministers for social services across the region, we collaborate, we visit each other, and we sit down and we see what works in one region, what works in one island, and how we can adopt that practice in the other island. So we currently share ideas. So it's just for us now to deepen our relationship, share more information, share data, share what's happening in your region, and to see how we can use what practices you've put in place to address the issues that you face in your island, and to see how we can adopt some of them here in Antigua and in the other regions. So it's just for us to work a deeper relationship together, because we already consult and collaborate.
Absolutely. And a final point, Minister Turner, as an architect and as somebody who is extremely engaged in that field of the built environment, how do you think the region can work together to improve its infrastructure? Because it's a crucial issue going forward, not only its roads and so on, but in terms of its building, the strength of its infrastructure at a time when this is another area of your portfolio, hurricane preparedness, when we're facing, because of climate change, more intense storms. Yes.
Sustainability. We have to take sustainability and building more resilient structures and homes seriously. I mean, in the past, we've talked about it a lot. We've made some adjustments to our building codes, but in terms of enforcement and monitoring, as a region, we need to make it a priority. to ensure that when these storms come, I mean, you can look at what happened in Barbuda with Hurricane Irma.
Indeed.
We had a Category 5 hurricane. I mean, most persons would have lived their entire life and would not have seen a storm of that significance. And we saw a total devastation. We had to evacuate an entire country, or sister island, an entire island. And I think that's a warning for us across the region that storms are becoming more aggressive. And we can't just have our building codes and our policies on paper. We have to enforce them, we have to monitor, and to ensure that the structures we're building in Antigua and the Caribbean are more resilient, because we have to safeguard our people, and if we don't, we're going to be in serious problems in the future.
Absolutely. We look forward to having some more of those discussions with you as well, going forward as well. Minister Turner, thank you so much, and really appreciate it. Enjoy the afternoon. Yes, much. All right, that's Minister for Social and Urban Transformation, Honorable Royalton Turner, speaking with us right here on ABS Television and our online platforms. Continuing coverage as we build up to the opening ceremony of the 78th OECS Authority meeting, taking place right here at the Royalton Resort in Antigua. The leaders, many of them are already here. Not in the room yet. They're actually ensconced in another area, and they'll be, of course, coming in together a bit later on as soon as we get ready, as soon as we're ready for the opening ceremony. In fact, we understand about 5 minutes or so away from the start. Actually, about 5 o'clock to start. So we have quite a way to go, quite a wait for the opening ceremony here. But we'll be taking a short break here on our broadcast. Continuing coverage, more interviews, looking ahead to the start of this momentous occasion for the region. Of course, Antigua Barbuda hosting this 78th OECS Authority meeting at a time when Prime Minister the Right Honourable Gaston Brown prepares to take over the chairmanship of the OECS Authority. It rotates. The previous chairman, or certainly the outgoing one, is the Prime Minister of St. Vincent and the Grenadines, Dr. Godwin Friday. And of course, Prime Minister Brown will now be assuming that chairmanship for the next year or so. In fact, just before we go to a break, we can get one other interview in with us, because we can now be joined by the newly minted Ambassador at Large, former parliamentarian, former Minister of Government, and now Ambassador at Large. Ambassador, should I say Ambassador Senator Emerita? Samantha Marshall. Good to see you, Ambassador.
Thank
and congratulations.
You. Thank you very much.
First time I've spoken with you since your appointment, so congratulations.
Thank you very much, Wilfred.
Let's talk about the need for greater integration in the region at a time when we're, of course, getting ready for the 78th meeting. You are now fully ensconced and immersed in the halls of diplomacy. Let's talk about how the region can collectively work to deepen integration.
I think this is a perfect opportunity for us to revisit where we are and where we need to be. Right. There has been quite a bit of a lapse, actually, and that everyone can be on the same page. I think one of the greater things for us is the whole issue of transportation of goods within our region, strengthening our ability in terms of our economic development within our region. And I hope that these are the discussions that our leaders will be having. We see what is happening globally, and we are a small region, and how we rely heavily on importation and the tourism industry. If we are not able to ensure that we insulate ourselves in a manner that really can protect our people, we have to be, we really have to put that at the forefront. So I believe a lot of the discussions that our leaders will be having are in relation to that. And I look forward to see what comes out of that meeting.
Yeah. And what other issues do you think? What's the other main issue that you think that Prime Minister Brown should champion as he goes into this year as chairman of the OECS Authority? Well,
I know Prime Minister Brown is really going to look at the overall impact of we always talk about the fact that we are small island developing states, and so our economies are really based upon the fact that a lot of us are based upon tourism. That is very sensitive, and we have to make sure that we're able to protect our economies as much as possible. So I think that really will be at the forefront. How do we protect ourselves, our people, ensure that our people are properly developed? How do we strengthen relations, not just within the region, but the region partnering with other countries to strengthen those relations? And I think that is really where we're going to be at.
Ambassador, You're entering the diplomatic field at a time of tremendous geopolitical flux, geopolitical fragmentation, when there's been an upending of the multilateral order, the post-World War order that we've enjoyed for the last 80 years, which produced, for example, the Bretton Woods system and produced the United Nations in 1945 and produced an arrangement and an architecture where small states have a voice in the international order. That order is fraying and essentially on its way out almost.
Yes.
How do you navigate such a very difficult period as this country is one of this country's newest ambassadors?
I think the reality is that we have to all understand what is the agenda, and I think we have to understand how we're able to maneuver. We have a lot to offer despite us being a small region, despite us being probably not able to produce as much as we should for our own people. We still have a lot, especially within the services sector. The capacity of our people to go out there and to assist in the development in other areas. We have that ability. So I think if you look at what is happening within our region, even the recent decisions made by our government in terms of what we're doing with the University of West Indies, we are looking to develop at a high level our human capital capacity. And I think that is one of the key areas that we need to focus on. Without that, we cannot be guided. We cannot ensure that there's sustainability for any decisions that we make at this time. And we are looking, some of our best advocates and our best economists are people within our region. But we need to make sure that we keep that growing. And we need to make sure that who is coming now has a greater understanding of the geopolitics and the role that we need to play in that regard.
I like the point about the human capital development, because especially in the OECS, there may not be abundant natural resources, natural mineral resources, but what exists in abundance is human potential. It's about turning that potential into actionable and measurable, quantifiable business ideas and human capital development, especially at a time when AI and the fifth industrial revolution taking over. Let me ask you a final point, Ambassador. So you're getting ready for your first major assignment, and that I think
did my first major
you
assignment.
You did it already? What was it? Tell me.
I returned yesterday.
This was the
I attended
OAS.
the CARA Forum.
The CARA, right?
Yes, that was held in Santo Domingo, Dominican Republic, and it was actually a 2-day meeting, but I made it for the final session, and it was quite a good meeting. We have had the opportunity of engaging more, the CARICOM, engaging more with the EU, and understanding and coming to a common understanding as to how the EU can better support us as CARICOM. And so I think that within the next 2 years or so, you'll be hearing some great things coming out from CARA Forum.
Very good. And looking to strengthen the implementation of the Economic Partnership Agreements, the EPA?
Of course, yes, definitely.
Okay.
So there are a few things that, of course, CARICOM member states need to do, but there's also support that needs to be given by EU to assist us in ensuring that we're able to achieve what it is that we would like to achieve. Okay.
And you're looking forward, I'm pretty sure, to your next assignment.
Well, I don't know when is my next assignment.
Well, whatever it is, you're looking forward to it.
But I do look forward to being able to serve as much as possible.
Absolutely. And of course, just to indicate for our audience, CARI Forum is CARICOM plus the Dominican Republic. Of course, engaging through this mechanism with the European Union within the context of the Economic Partnership Agreements. We've had this discussion, we've had this kind of engagement for quite a while with the Lomé Convention, the Cotonou Agreement, and now we're talking about the Economic Partnership Agreement.
Right.
So crucial discussions, consequential discussions that you've had, and I'm pretty sure that the extent to which you were part of those discussions shows that you're being held in very, very high regard. This was your maiden assignment. It shows that you're rated very highly.
Yes.
Thank you so much. Really appreciate it.
All the best.
Congratulations again.
Thank you.
Very
All the
good.
best
Very good. Thank you so much. That's Ambassador Samantha Marshall, as I said, newly minted Ambassador at Large, speaking with us right here on ABS as we get ready for the start of the OECS's 78th OECS Authority's 78th meeting. Of course, it's taking place right here at the Royalton Resort. 12 members in the OECS. There are 7 protocol members. The other 5 are associate members. The other 5 associate members are between the British Overseas and French Overseas Territories. They're all gathered here. The leaders, most of the leaders are gathered here. Some will be represented by foreign ministers or other high-ranking government officials, but most of the leaders here, they'll be, of course, witnessing the changing of the baton, the passing of the baton from Dr. Godwin Friday, the Prime Minister of St. Vincent and the Grenadines, to Prime Minister, the Right Honourable Gaston Brown, as the chairman of the OECS Authority for the next year or so. So Prime Minister Brown has already outlined some of the key deliverables, the key objectives that he'll be pushing on for the next year. He wants to make it frame-breaking. He wants to make it epoch-making. He wants to make it impactful. He doesn't want it to just be a kind of normal chairmanship of the OECS where, for example, resolutions are passed and discussions are held and rhetoric is engaged. And he wants to really make sure that it can make a meaningful impact in the lives of citizens across the OECS, the Organization of Eastern Caribbean States. As I said, celebrating its 45th anniversary this year. June 18 this year marked 45 years since the Organization of Eastern Caribbean States came into being, when the signing of the Treaty of Basseterre, the original Treaty of Basseterre, that of course has since been revised in 2010 for the revised Treaty of Basseterre, which made way for an economic union. And of course, coming with that, there were contingent rights. And that means that if you move across another, from one OECS member state to another, you are entitled to certain rights, just like a citizen in that particular country. So for example, matters of education, health, you heard Sir Malvin Jersey speak about that a bit earlier as well. All right, we're going to be taking a break, and hopefully we're getting much closer now to the start of the proceedings here. We understand that we should be starting in perhaps about another 15 minutes or so. We'll take a break. We'll remind you of what Prime Minister Brown said, just in case you missed our interview or excerpt of our interview earlier. We'll play that for you again, as Prime Minister Brown, speaking with me about 2 weeks ago, spoke about some of the areas that he'll be focusing on. Regional integration, regional transportation, matter of energy security and push towards renewables, and also a reform of the OECS Secretariat itself. Take a listen as we go to a break. When we come back, we'll of course hopefully be getting ready for the start of the proceedings this afternoon.
I've said to my regional colleagues that previous leaders of the OECS, they didn't have the intellectual capital or the financial capital that we have, but they've achieved more. And I've said to them that this type of routine leadership that we have provided, we have to go beyond that. We now have to start to do some frame-breaking things, make some impactful decisions that will not only serve our generation but future generations. Air transportation is one of the areas in which I think that we now have to look at the sustainability of air transportation within the sub-region, and for us to pursue a policy of joint investment, joint burden, and this idea that, I have one or two nations trying to provide air connectivity and the others just look on. I mean, that's not an appropriate model. I mean, it has to be one in which we share the responsibility and, of course, the benefits. I also want to look at the issue of energy cooperation among OECS countries. As you know, we have countries within the OECS that they have geothermal energy. St. Kitts and Nevis, for example. We're now in advanced talks with them to determine whether or not we can get geothermal energy from them on the basis they're able to bring it to market and at a commercial rate. And we have said to them too that we'll even participate in the funding. So, within the European Union that they provide grants on the EPA. We've said to them, look, rather than each of us going for small sums, $3 million a piece, that cannot do anything substantive for us. Let us consolidate all of these grants among at least 6 independent nations of the OECS, and ask them also to give us an advance maybe for the next 10 years. And if we can raise a few $100 million in grants and loans, I'm not too sure how much it will cost us, but if we assume it's even $500 million or even $1 billion to get all the cables and so on necessary and connect the various islands, I think that we should be able to amortize such a loan maybe over a period of maybe 5 to 10 years maximum, and would be in a position to drive down the cost of energy, the cost of electricity, and by so doing as well, we'll become far more competitive. So this is the type of collaboration and cooperation I want to see within the OECS. I've even spoken to the Director General about bureaucracy. I think it has grown unwieldy, and we need to see some reformation within the OECS Secretariat itself, and to ensure that the countries get good value for money. And generally speaking, to make sure that there's greater collaboration and cooperation, especially considering the geopolitical challenges, for us to, as far as practicable, make joint decisions and to stand by those decisions. As we've been pursued by certain countries to do things that are even inimical to our own interests, it's important for us to negotiate on a sub-regional basis rather than to go it alone independently. So these are some of the issues that I want to bring to the table. And of course, to encourage greater trust among OECS leaders. The reliability of our words must be important. So, when we give a commitment to do something, we should stand by that commitment, even in terms of having joint representation in certain capitals. That's an issue that we've been speaking to for many years, and we have not quite achieved it, and I certainly want to see how we can accelerate that level of cooperation among OECS countries and OECS heads in particular. So again, we expect it to be impactful and maybe frame breaking to some extent. Again, I always believe that we always need to make decisions that make a difference in the lives of the people, not just to gather annually on a routine basis and just to regurgitate and to reiterate and to flag and to be very diplomatic, but to make decisions that will make a difference in the lives of the people of the OECS sub-region.
OECS Authority. It's taking place right here at the Royalton Resort in Antigua. Prime Minister, the Right Honorable Gaston Brown, will be assuming chairmanship of the OECS Commission or the OECS Authority for a year starting today. The outgoing chairman, Dr. Godwin Friday of St. Vincent and the Grenadines, will be making his outgoing address, and Prime Minister Brown will be giving his incoming address as the chair of the OECS Authority for a period of a year. Joining me as we welcome you back is Ambassador Lionel Hurst. Ambassador Sir Lionel Hurst is Chief of Staff in the Prime Minister's Office of Prime Minister the Right Honorable Gaston Brown, and of course we're expecting, of course, more. Right, so there you go, Maurice Merchant, who is going to be the chairman of the proceedings here today, indicating to the audience here, indicating to those gathered that will be starting momentarily. We look forward to that. Ambassador Sir Lionel Hurst, good to see you.
Good to be seen.
Happy Father's Day as well.
Oh, thank you very much, and happy Father's Day to you too.
Thank you as well. Thank you
to your audience.
Thank you so much, Ambassador. Let's talk, Sir Lionel, about the OECS and the reasoning of those who brought it into being 45 years ago, June 18, 1981. The protocol member states, the ones who who actually signed the Treaty of Basseterre, what was the thought process at the time?
Well, the Honorable Lester Bird, as you know, at the time was Deputy Prime Minister of Antigua and Barbuda. In fact, he was Deputy Premier because Antigua had not yet achieved independence. And he was of the view that the CARICOM did not meet all of our needs, and therefore there was a need for a sub-organization that would apply to the needs of the smaller states within the CARICOM. And he was quite right. We had a currency of our own called the Eastern Caribbean dollar, which still exists. And we also had a Judicial and Legal Services Commission that selected judges for our Supreme Court. At that time, before the OECS, there was the West Indies Associated States, and Antigua and Barbuda very much wanted to establish leadership among this group, and the Honorable Lester Bird was given the task of forming this OECS, which he did. And since that time, Antigua and Barbuda has continued to play a leadership role in our organization, the OECS.
Excellent. And in terms of the thought process of regional integration, what was it the thought that the states would be stronger together? Was it a thought, for example, that going up against the behemoths of the world, the superpowers of the world, that perhaps they would have been greater strength in numbers? Was that the thought process at the time?
That was exactly the thought process. If you take into account that there are several island nations that have only one seat at the United Nations, the Philippines, for example, over 1,000 islands, Malaysia, over 500 islands. These island countries determined that it is better to have but one country. In our case, what we decided is that we would be 14 independent countries, certainly within the OECS, 6 independent countries, and we'd have 6 votes at the United Nations and at the OAS and so on, rather than a single vote. So there was no agreement to do away with our sovereignty, but rather to strengthen our sovereignty by having us participate as a group within, not only within the OAS and the United Nations, but in doing some other things that benefited us directly. Education, for example, or fiscal policy, and to a large extent investment policy throughout our region. And we did it, and it has been a success.
Let's talk about that, Ambassador, and the extent to which the OECS has been a kind of paragon, a kind of exemplar for other integration movements as well. Because in as much as what happens in Europe, there is the OECS Commission, there's also the EU Commission, there's an OECS Authority, there is also the grouping of the OECS in Brussels, there's an OECS Parliament, there's also an EU Parliament. Correct. So there's a very close connection in terms of what happens there. There's a common currency, the EU, the euro, there's also the EC dollar here as well. Correct. But let's talk about how the OECS showed the way for Europe in some respects as well.
Oh, without a doubt. The Europeans came to our Caribbean to examine some of the things that we had been doing. The items that you have mentioned are among a few. Now, take the regional security system, where we agreed that our military and our police forces throughout the OECS, if they joined hands, would make a far greater force than if they tried doing it alone. So in 1983, we established the regional security system, the RSS by way of treaty. And that has strengthened our security in so many ways. And of course, we are delighted that every time there's a hurricane or some crisis, the RSS has come to the defense of our sovereign states in the region.
Absolutely. Of course, we're getting ready for the start of the proceedings shortly as well here. The cadets who will be taking up the flags, marching over the flags and so on, are getting ready in position. But I have to get you on this, Ambassador. As the OECS navigates, I mean, when the OECS started in 1981, June 18, 1981, the world was a very different place compared to what it is now. In fact, in 1981, the Cold War was still going on. The way countries are, some of the names of countries now were not the countries that existed then. So since then, during the period of the OECS's evolution, we've seen the end of the Cold War, the fall of the Berlin Wall, the reunification of Germany, the rise of the internet, and now the rise of artificial intelligence, the fifth industrial revolution. So much has happened over the past 45 years. As the OECS goes into another year with Prime Minister Brown as the chairman of the OECS Authority, what do you think are the biggest challenges that confront it?
Well, certainly you've mentioned the AI revolution. There's no doubt that this is going to impact our countries and our ability to govern. These inventions have had significant impact on the way we do business, for example. And in Antigua and Barbuda's case, seeking out foreign direct investment for development has been a pillar of our developmental strategy. Consequently, we know that we must develop a cadre of persons who are schooled in AI and who can, in fact, apply it where it works best for us. And we're already seeing some of it doing the work that we would wish AI to do. Investment is one of them. Tourism promotion is another. Tourism is very important to all the countries in the Eastern Caribbean, given our reliance upon our sun, sand, sea, and beach. And of course, the exchange which it earns, about 60% of the foreign exchange earned in Antigua and Barbuda comes through tourism. So we are really very eager to ensure that all these systems work for us. Again, there was a Soviet Union in 1981, but today, we have instead about 15 sovereign states from the breakaway Soviet Union. And we have seen an increase in the amount of tension around the world in recent times, especially since the United States has adopted a different attitude towards the countries in the world, even its own allies in Europe and elsewhere. And the United States, because of its size, it's a behemoth, because of its ability to change conditions in the world, the United States is indeed affecting the way in which we proceed. Our intention, of course, is to ensure that by our nimble policies, we're able to adjust in such a way that it won't affect us. The policies adopted by the United States won't affect us in such a way that we are unable to respond. We are responding and responding well.
A final point, Ambassador. As I said, so much change has happened over the past 45 years in a world of tremendous flux, but the world has gone through, within the past 18 months or so, even more flux.
That's
in terms of geopolitically and geoeconomically, because we're seeing, for example, the whole collapse of the post-World War II multilateral order. The concept that states that there's a sovereignty for states and that every state, irrespective of its size, has the same voice and the same right of making its position heard, and going towards a multilateral order where there is this divvying up of power in the world. We're kind of seeing more towards back almost a kind of an imperialistic kind of position and mindset. Certainly that's the position of President Trump and his administration. How does the OECS deal with that, and how especially for the next year or so when the Prime Minister is in charge of it?
Our policies are mostly ad hoc in some instances because we don't know what the United States is going to do. I take this question of refugees, for example. The United States asked us to accept a few refugees every year, and we agreed to a few refugees every year. But the United States is now adding criminal elements to the deportees from the U.S. to places like Jamaica and Antigua and Barbuda. And we have told them in no uncertain terms that we are not going to allow our countries to be used in that manner. So we have responses that reflect a certain strength of character. And the question is, will we be able to hold against the United States? We've seen what the United States has done with Cuba and the embargo, and now a military flotilla waiting offshore Cuba. We don't know exactly what for, but we're assuming that they're going to impact the way in which our countries relate in the future.
We'll see how that one pans out, but a tremendous period of fluidity awaits us, certainly in terms of the geopolitical environment. As you rightly said, Ambassador, so much uncertainty in terms of how the U.S. will relate to countries of the Americas, especially in our case, the OECS as well, and CARICOM. Let's see how that one pans out.
Indeed, and our small size allows us a certain amount of nimbleness, and as a consequence, we think that we'll be able to escape some of the pressures that the United States will exert.
Ambassador, thank you so much. As ever,
thank you for having me.
We really appreciate your perspicacious musings on these powerful issues of diplomacy and geopolitics and strategic development for these countries of the region.
Thank you very much, Burford,
really
and happy Father's Day to you.
Happy Father's Day to you as well. Thank you so much. Really appreciate it. That's Ambassador Sir Lionel Hurst speaking with us about the thought process that went into the formation of the OECS, and of course the move towards the evolution of the OECS, taking into account the tremendous flux, the tremendous changes that we're seeing in the world around us today. We can now be joined by another distinguished member of the audience here. Mr. Randy Cato joins us now. Mr. Cato is a former Director of Economic Affairs for the OECS Commission. Mr. Cato, thank you so much for joining us. You're joining us, you've been here from St. Vincent and the Grenadines. Welcome.
That's right.
And happy Father's Day to you as well.
Thank you.
Indeed. Let's talk about your time. During which years were you the Director of Economic Affairs for the OECS Commission, and what were some of the defining moments or defining points during your tenure?
Okay, well, I joined what is then the Secretariat in 1997 under the Director Generalship of Mr. Lestrade, Swinburne Lestrade. And that was a time when the organization was going through some reorganization and changes. In fact, we're closing the Economic Affairs Secretariat, which used to be based here in Antigua, and consolidating all activities in St. Lucia as a cost-saving measure and efficiency gain measure. So I joined then, and I as Director of Economic Affairs, and then I left at the end of 2013.
Oh, so you had quite a stint.
A long haul.
Absolutely, absolutely.
That's right.
What were some of the defining points you said?
Well, the key thing is that if it would be the renegotiation of the Treaty of Bastille.
Oh, okay.
All right? The renegotiation of the Treaty of Bastille, come up with a revised treaty which established the OECS Economic Union and single market. That really has to be the hallmark of what happened during that period. The new treaty was signed in 2010, I think it was.
Yes, June 18, 2010.
And it was took a little bit of time and effort to negotiate it fully, but we were successful.
Very good, very good.
It signed up.
And looking back at that, the renegotiation, the signing in 2010, June 18, 2010, the revised Treaty of Bastille, paving the way for an economic union. Do you think that it has really worked as intended?
No. There's a lot of work still to be done. But it were noble ideas, and they can still, in fact, be achieved. Particularly, the simple matter is this. As small island developing states, we need to find imaginative ways of enlarging our space for action. And since we can't enlarge in our individual member states, we can only do it by collectively coming together and doing things in common. And that was the driving notion behind the economic union and deepening the integration process.
Was it about, I think it's a powerful point, a profound point, Mr. Cater, because it seems to me like the push was for greater levels of building the economies of scale. And as we get ready for the start of the proceedings here, Maurice Merchant, the chairman of the of today's opening ceremony, he's getting ready. But a quick final point to you. As we go into the next year, Prime Minister Brown will be, of course, assuming the chairmanship this afternoon. What do you think are some of the key issues, the two quick issues that you
Well, he has already laid out some of the things that he's going to focus on, and it's really to drive and deepen the process and to get over the sort of pause, perhaps, that we have seen within recent time. We're going to get there.
Thank you so much. Really appreciate it, Mr. Cato. Thank you so much. Let's turn over to Maurice Merchant for the start of the proceedings today.
As we commence today's proceedings, guided by a program of strategic significance, we trust that your presence here this afternoon contributes to, as we render this occasion both enriching and enduring in impact. To formally commence today's proceedings, I now invite you to stand as we extend a warm and respectful welcome to the heads of government and esteemed representatives of our member states. We invite the Director General of the Organization of Eastern Caribbean States, Dr. Didicus Jules, after the entry of the Director General of the OECS, His Excellency Dr. Didicus Jules, we will then invite the heads and other representatives of the various countries of the OECS to join us. Our flag bearers this afternoon, they come from the Cadet Corps of the Antigua and Barbuda Defense Force. His Excellency Dr. Didicus Jules, Director General of the Organization of Eastern Caribbean States. Prime Minister of Antigua and Barbuda, the Right Honorable Gaston Brown. We welcome the flag bearer for the Commonwealth of Dominica. Representative of the Prime Minister of Grenada, His Excellency Aaron Moses. The Premier of Montserrat, the Honorable Reuben Meade. Representative of the Prime Minister of St. Lucia, Senator the Honorable Dr. Chandra Hackersing. We welcome the flag bearer of the Virgin Islands. Representative of the President of the Executive Council of the Territorial Collectivity of Martinique, Madam Sandra Casanova, Member of the Assembly of Martinique. We welcome the flag bearer of the Regional Council of Guadeloupe. Ladies and gentlemen, the Prime Minister of St. Vincent and the Grenadines, the Honorable Dr. Goodwin Friday, the current Chairman of the Authority. Kindly remain standing, ladies and gentlemen, as we welcome the Governor General's Deputy of Antigua and Barbuda, His Excellency Sir Claire Roberts. We pause now for the invocation as we invite the Very Reverend from the Moravian Church here in Antigua and Barbuda, the Reverend Judy Winspear Phillip.
Good afternoon, all. Sir Claire Roberts, Governor General Deputy of Antigua and Barbuda, Honorable Gaston Brown, incoming Chairman of the OECS and Prime Minister of Antigua and Barbuda, Honorable Dr. Godwin Friday, outgoing Chairman of the OECS and Prime Minister of St. Vincent and the Grenadines, Dr. Didacus Jules, Director General of the OECS, distinguished members of the Organization of the Eastern Caribbean States, honorable representatives, esteemed colleagues, friends, and invited guests. We gather today under the guiding theme, One Vision, One Voice, Navigating Challenges, Shaping Our Future. And this moment reminds us that our strength lies in unity, our resilience is shared purpose, and our hope in the future we are shaping together. As the members of the OECS embark on the deliberation of this meeting, let us now pause to acknowledge the divine presence that sustains us and seek wisdom and guidance for the task ahead. Let us pray. Gracious and loving God, we gather together in your presence, acknowledging that our strength and success comes not from human wisdom alone, but from trusting in you. As the organizations of the Eastern Caribbean State convenes for its 78th Authority meeting, we pause to honor your guidance and seek your blessings upon this opening ceremony. Your word declares in Jeremiah 17:7-8, blessed is the one whose trust is in the Lord, whose confidence is in him. They will be like a tree planted by the water that sends out its roots by the stream. It does not fear when heat comes. Its leaves are always green. It has no worries in a year of drought and never fails to bear fruit. Lord, may our leaders be rooted in you, drawing strength from your wisdom, so that in times of challenge, they remain steadfast, fruitful, and full of hope. We thank you for the leadership that has guided us thus far in the person of Honorable Dr. Godwin Friday, Prime Minister of St. Vincent and the Grenadines. We continue to ask your blessings upon him during his transition. Lord, as we prepare to witness the changing over of chairmanship, we ask for your blessings and your anointing upon Honorable Gaston Brown, Prime Minister of Antigua and Barbuda, as he assumes his mantle of responsibility. May the outgoing chairman be remembered with honor, and may the incoming chairman be strengthened with courage, wisdom, discernment, and compassion. Your words reminds us in Proverbs 11:14, where there is no guidance, a people falls, but in an abundance of counselors, there is safety. Grant wisdom to every leader gathered here today, that through collaboration and unity, our nations may flourish. In moments of uncertainty, Lord, we hold fast to Isaiah 41:10 that tells us, fear not, for I am with you. Be not dismayed, for I am your God. I will strengthen you I will help you. I will uphold you with my righteous right hand. May this assurance guide their deliberations as they seek to navigate economic, social, and environmental challenges. And as they look to the future, we pray that they will remember your words in Jeremiah 29:11. For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans to prosper you and not to harm you, plans to give you a future. May our shared vision and one voice align with your divine purpose, shaping a future of peace, prosperity, and opportunity for generations to come. Bless every nation present, Lord, every leader entrusted with responsibility, and every citizen whose lives are touched by the work of this authority. Father, knit us together in unity so that with one vision and one voice we may rise above division and walk boldly into the future you have already prepared. Lord, you have begun a good work within them, and you will certainly see it to completion, knowing that with you, Lord, all things are possible. In the mighty name of Jesus I pray, and all say, amen.
Thank you very much, Reverend. At this time, we welcome the Prime Minister of the Commonwealth of Dominica, His Excellency, Mr. Skerritt. We remain standing for the playing of the national anthem of Antigua and Barbuda. Please be seated, ladies and gentlemen. We thank the members of the Antigua and Barbuda Cadet Corps who are flag bearers this afternoon. Permit me at this time to acknowledge once again His Excellency, the Governor General's Deputy of Antigua and Barbuda, Sir Clare Roberts, the Right Honorable Gaston Brown, Prime Minister of Antigua and Barbuda, heads of governments and representatives of the OECS states, Honorable Madam Margaret Price Findlay, Chief Justice of the Eastern Caribbean Court of Justice, members of the Cabinet of Antigua and Barbuda, Senator the Honorable Olyncia Williams Grant, President of the Senate of Antigua and Barbuda, members of Parliament, members of the Diplomatic Corps, Dr. Didicus Jules, Director General of the OECS, Dr. Carla Barnett, Secretary General of CARICOM, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon and welcome to Antigua and Barbuda and to the opening ceremony of the 78th meeting of the Authority of the Organization of Eastern Caribbean States. It is my distinct honor to serve as your chair of proceedings this afternoon as we gather at an important moment in the life of our regional organization. a moment that celebrates not only the transition of leadership, but also the enduring spirit of cooperation that has made the OECS one of the most successful regional integration movements in the developing world. Today, we witness the transfer of the chairmanship of the OECS Authority from the Honorable Dr. Goodwin Friday to the Right Honorable Gaston Brown. In doing so, we celebrate continuity, renewal, and the promise of a future shaped by bold ideas and collective action. Here in Antigua and Barbuda, we often speak of a renaissance, a period of transformation characterized by economic expansion, investment in education and healthcare, technological innovation, environmental stewardship, and renewed optimism about what our people can achieve. It is a renaissance that seeks to empower every citizen and to ensure that prosperity is broad-based and sustained. As Prime Minister Gaston Brown assumes the chairmanship of the OECS Authority, perhaps the time has come for us to imagine an OECS renaissance, a new era of regional transformation founded on the same principles of innovation, resilience, and shared prosperity. An OECS renaissance would be one in which our nation deepen economic integration, embrace digital transformation, strengthen food and energy security, advance climate resilience, and invest boldly in our people. It would be a renaissance that recognizes that while each of our countries is unique, our destinies are inextricably linked. Antigua and Barbuda is deeply honored to host this historic gathering and to welcome the distinguished leaders of our sister states. We do so with confidence that under the leadership of Prime Minister Gaston Brown and the collective wisdom of the heads of government of the organization of OECS, this organization will continue to evolve and flourish. Ladies and gentlemen, once again, welcome to Antigua and Barbuda, and welcome to the 78th meeting of the OECS Authority. At this time, I invite the Director General of the OECS, Dr. Didicus Jules, to give remarks.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Your Excellencies, Sir Claire Roberts, Governor General's Deputy of Antigua and Barbuda, and Lady Roberts, the Honorable Gaston Brown, Chairman of the OECS Authority and Prime Minister of Antigua and Barbuda, Dr. the Honorable Goodwin Friday, outgoing Chairman of the Authority and Prime Minister of St. Vincent and the Grenadines, the Honorable Roosevelt Skerrit, Prime Minister of the Commonwealth of Dominica, the Honorable Reuben Meade, Premier of the Protocol Member State Montserrat, Dr. the Honorable, Honorable Senator the Honorable Chandali Harak Singh, representing the Honorable Philip J. Pierre, Prime Minister of St. Lucia, Commissioner Iran Moses, representing the Honorable Dickon Mitchell, Prime Minister of Grenada, Carriacou, and Petit Martinique, senior representatives of the member states of the OECS, Honorable Ministers of Government, Honorable Jamal Pringle, Leader of the Opposition, Ms. Alincia Williams-Grant, President of the Senate, the Honorable Osbert Frederick, Speaker of the House of Representatives, Members of Parliament, the Honorable Madam Margaret Price Finlay, Chief Justice of the Eastern Caribbean Supreme Court. A special welcome to Her Excellency Dr. Carla Burnett, Secretary General of CARICOM, distinguished members of the Diplomatic Corps, directors and staff of the Commission, members of the media, ladies and gentlemen, and above all, people of our Eastern Caribbean community. Chairman, colleagues, 45 years on, permit me the privilege of the plainest question that this anniversary can put to us. what in the end is this thing that we have built? It is tempting to answer in the language of our trade, to point to the revised Treaty of Bastille, to protocols ratified and councils convened, to the machinery of a commission. But I've come to believe that the treaty and the machinery, indispensable as they are not the integration. They are its scaffolding. Integration itself is not treaties on paper, nor the quiet convergence of government bureaucracies. It is something older and more stubborn than any of that. It is the culture of cooperation. In the OECS, our people have a name for it. They call it, in Creole, the Kudme. In the Anglophone OECS, the helping hand, the lend hand, anything similar. The day the whole village lays down its own work to raise one family's roof or bring in one farmer's harvest, in the certain knowledge that when the season turns, the hands will come for them in their turn. Derek Walcott understood that our genius as a people was never in our size or our wealth, but in precisely this, the hoisting of shared burdens and the reaping of a larger harvest from joint labor. The OECS at its truest is the Kudme written large. That is the lens through which I wish to render this evening's account. But first, two debts of gratitude. To the outgoing chairman, Dr. the Honorable Godwin Friday, you gave this organization so your ready, patient, and unwavering attention at the very moment you were settling in your new government into office. Two inheritances on a single day, and you let neither crowd out the other. We are deeply grateful. And to our incoming chairman, the Right Honorable Gaston Brown, I have come to count on the frankness of your advice and the clarity of your direction. You do not permit us the comfort of the easy report, and any institution is the stronger for a chairman who will not. I welcome your stewardship of the year ahead. Now to the account itself. What did pooling actually deliver this year? I will measure it against the only test that matters, whether working together gave our people more voice, more strength, and a more affordable life. It gave us voice. When larger powers approach our member states one by one on delicate questions and cooperation that appeared to leave little room to wriggle, and as geopolitical developments came closer and closer to home in the Caribbean, we discussed and considered their implications and consequences together on the understanding that none of us could dance between the raindrops of that storm alone. That is the whole logic of the organization in one decision. What would overwhelm any of us alone, we can meet steadily when we meet it shoulder to shoulder. And we learned this year to do so at the speed of events, convening in caucus when the moment demanded rather than when the calendar permitted. It gave us strength. We began to change our very posture before the world's financiers, moving away from scattered hand-to-mouth, project-by-project mendicancy towards integrated, finance-ready portfolios and pursuing accreditation to draw climate finance directly in our own right through entities like the Green Climate Fund. The OECS Authority and the Commission have been working hand in glove with Dr. Jean Leon towards the establishment of the Development Bank for Resilient Prosperity, the Nature Bank, a Caribbean-initiated financial institution that monetizes the natural and ecological assets of the region and SIDS to mobilize long-term low-cost capital for climate resilience and sustainable development, converting environmental stewardship into a sovereign-grade financing instrument that funds resilient infrastructure and prosperity across member states. And I have to say that Prime Minister Brown was instrumental in the initial launch of that Nature Bank. We are in the final stages of establishing an independent regulatory authority to hold our citizenship by investment programs to the highest standards. I am proud to announce that Antigua and Barbuda has today deposited its instrument of accession to this guarantee of integrity. Pooling of sovereignty in health has also made life more affordable. For more than 4 decades, our pooled procurement of pharmaceuticals has brought medicine for our people at a fraction of the prices that any one of us could ever command alone, delivering roughly $4 million US in annual savings across an 840 product portfolio since 1986. A regional healthy food policy, NCD push, also gathered pace in mid-2026. Dominica and St. Kitts and Nevis have led the way in the move to geothermal energy, encouraging others with potential to follow. All member states are embracing solar power with adoption at the utility and household levels. The indigenous energy push is supported by GeoBuild, a geothermal capacity building for utilization and investment project, and the direct use of geothermal energy project complemented by Interreg Energy Transition Project, the ESEP Power Savers Efficiency Work, and PV Installer Certification. In agriculture, substantial progress has been made in conjunction with our strategic partners, AICA and FAO, in advancing the OECS food and agricultural systems transformation with our youth, women, and differently abled persons in agriculture, increasing their numbers and the scope of their work. Over the past year, the education portfolio shifted from policy harmonization towards finance instrumented delivery, moving from a total of $16 million US in dedicated education financing to $30 million US with the inclusion of digital school connectivity. The coalition of partners who are making this possible include the Global Partnership for Education, World Bank, GIGA, UNICEF. A global innovation being undertaken in the OECS, note it's a global innovation, is a full census of student experience and assessment of their education from kindergarten to Form 5, which is to be followed by a census of all of their teachers as well as a survey of parental perspectives. I invite you to consider the unprecedented importance and the transformative value of that data and the direction that can emerge from the inclusion of these voices. And I offer these not as trophies, most are unfinished, but I offer them as consequential evidence that the Kudme works, that joined hands raise a higher roof than any of us could raise alone. And we will need that higher roof because the weather has turned. For most of our life as an organization, we sheltered, however imperfectly, beneath a global order that offered small states some measure of predictable support. That order is passing. It is passing quickly. We have entered an age of open contestation among great powers, an age that expects small states to choose sides and to pay for choosing the wrong side. Where assistance long relied upon is withdrawn overnight by the stroke of a distant pen, and the rules we were instructed to honor are bent by the very hands that wrote them. We are penalized for our own progress. Some, like Antigua and Barbuda and St. Kitts and Nevis, judged too prosperous to be helped by some of the multilateral agencies, even as a single storm can erase a quarter of a nation's output in an afternoon. This is not a passing season of bad political weather. It is the climate of our era, and we will not talk it away. So let me speak directly to the arithmetic of this moment, because our founders left us with a warning, and the world has now given us its proof. At the impending demise of the West Indies Federation, Dr. Eric Williams warned that 1 from 10 leaves not 0. That to subtract a single member is not merely to make us smaller, but to imperil the whole. They understood that we are not a stack of separate units to be added and removed at will. We are a single fabric, and a fabric does not survive the steady pulling of its threads. The wisdom of that lesson is in danger of being lost in our wider Caribbean region. The arithmetic of the geopolitical moment must now teach us the other half of that lesson, that 1 + 2, properly joined, do not make 3. They make the 12 member states of the OECS. Pooling is not addition, it is multiplication. And 12 twigs bundled together are not so easily broken as one twig snapped at a time. That there is the whole case for our union in a simple image. Alone, each of us breaks, bundled, we hold. Let us be clear then about what pool sovereignty is and what it is not, because the concept has sometimes been misinterpreted to suggest the loss of political self-direction. Pool sovereignty is not the weakening of political choice. It is not the ceding of it. It is the opposite. It is the act of drawing together the boundaries within which we can win the right to exercise the same choices that larger nations take for granted, to enjoy the same freedoms, to command the same hearing. We pool not to become less ourselves, but to become large enough to remain ourselves in a world that respects only scale. For let no one in this region ever forget it, we are no children of a lesser God. And that is why we must insist on measuring pooling by what it returns to our people. It must give them a voice, real mechanisms of representation and participation, and not the mere appearance of them. It must give them strength, empowering legislation and enable civic institutions, our creative sector, our information technology and digital industries, our differently abled, our young people, and the women of our islands, who carry so much of the work and deserve their full share of its rewards. And it must make their lives more affordable, the pool procurement that turns our combined demand into lower prices. Which brings me to the work that must define the year ahead and the years beyond it. If integration is a culture of cooperation, then our central task is no longer only to build institutions. It is to make that culture come alive, to carry integration off the conference table and into the daily life of our people. In other words, regional integration has become increasingly inclusive. That begins with deeper political inclusion, a process that we initiated about 3 years ago that attempts to bring the parliamentary opposition across the OECS, not to discuss their domestic politics, but to provide technical updates on the work being done in keeping with the revised Treaty of Bastille. As presumed governments in waiting, it is important that they be kept informed on regional integration initiatives. Change of government in at least 2 of our member states have validated the importance of this inclusion effort to ensure that the integration effort survives every honest turn of the democratic wheel. Inclusive integration means opening real avenues for civil society, drawing our private sector, our cultural workers, our youth and women's movements, and our differently abled into the rooms where the regional future is decided, rather than informing them of it once it is settled. And it means making integration something our people can see and touch. Consider our regional education census, which reaches directly to students, to teachers, to parents. That is integration our people can feel, not an abstraction debated in a distant chamber, but a thing they are counted in, consulted on, and have a hand in building. We need a great deal more of it. This is how we turn voice into action. The instruments of pooling must now be placed deliberately at the service of those who will build the economy of our future, empowering legislation and enabling institutions for our creative and cultural industries, whose music and story are already our most recognizable export to the world, for our information technology, and digital sector which can leap the tyranny of distance that has always penalized small states. For our young people who must find reason to build their lives among us rather than away from us. For our differently abled whose full participation is a true measure of our decency. And for the women who hold up our households, our classrooms, our economies, and whose advancement is not an act of charity, but a matter of strategy. None of us can build all of that alone. Bundled together, we can. We can. And I take to heart our chairman's frank insistence that the Commission be a leaner and faster instrument. For this is precisely what that instrument is for, to become the shared, enabling capacity that no single member state can afford to build alone, turned outwards towards our people and our partners rather than inward upon its own processes. The reform of the machinery and the deepening of the culture are not two tasks, they are one. Colleagues, the world that once sustained us has in large measure evaporated. So be it. We have never in the end depended on the world's kindness. We have depended on one another. And that is what the Kudme has always known, that the hands which raise my neighbor's roof today will raise mine tomorrow, and that a people who labor together reap a harvest none of them could ever gather alone. Those who signed at Baste had less than we have and faced more than we face. But what they possessed was the nerve to bundle their separate twigs into one, to refuse the ancient lie that small must mean helpless. That is the inheritance we are charged to keep and to widen until every citizen of these islands feels themselves a partner in it and not a spectator to it. Let us use this year not merely to mark 45 years, but to earn the next 45, and to prove once more and to all who doubt it that we are no children of a lesser God. Thank you.
Dr. Joes, we thank you for your remarks this afternoon. Our region also thank you for your management of the authority. Please accept our gratitude. We've got some entertainment for you, and it is my pleasure to welcome to do a steel pan performance, Keandre Athil. Thank you most kindly, Keandre, for your presentation. And now, ladies and gentlemen, please join me in warmly welcoming to the podium the Prime Minister of St. Vincent and the Grenadines and outgoing Chairman of the OECS Authority, the Honorable Dr. Goodwin Friday.
His Excellency, the Governor General, Acting, the Honorable Prime Minister, Gaston Brown, of the wonderful country of Antigua and Barbuda, fellow heads of government of the OECS, Her Ladyship, the Honorable Chief Justice, Madam Margaret Price Finley, representatives from the Executive Council in Martinique and Guadeloupe, Her Excellency Carla Barnett, the Secretary General of CARICOM, of course, Director General of the OECS, Dr. Didicus Jules, who gave such a wonderful presentation. I was wondering whether I should get up to speak. Delegations of member states of the Organization of Eastern Caribbean States, honorable members of government, members of the diplomatic corps, directors of the staff, the OECS Commission, members of the media, ladies and gentlemen, people of the Eastern Caribbean who are following on social media. Thank you all for being here. I am privileged to be afforded the opportunity to make these remarks. I begin, as good manners require, by expressing my deep gratitude to the government and people of Antigua and Barbuda, and in particular to my brother, Prime Minister Gaston Brown, for the friendship, the warm welcome, and the generous hospitality shown to me and my delegation since we arrived here yesterday afternoon. I am sure that the other heads and visiting guests feel likewise. Thanks also to our Director General, Dr. Didicus Jules, and the wonderful staff of the OECS Secretariat for their diligence, expertise, all that were on show, are on show here in these proceedings. Let me also congratulate Dr. Jules on his reappointment as Director General. We are all beneficiaries of the careful planning and the hard work that the government of Antigua and Barbuda and the Secretariat have combined to do, so that this meeting would be possible, and indeed that it would be a great success. We look forward to the substantive deliberations that will follow tomorrow, as we seek to advance the common objectives, plans, and programs that the member states seek to pursue through this noble organization. It is gratifying to hear the Master of Ceremonies say, or remind us, that the OECS is indeed one of the more successful integration movements in the Caribbean and indeed anywhere. Sometimes we forget. But before I go any further, let me say to the fathers here and throughout the OECS, and indeed fathers everywhere, I pray that you are having a wonderful Father's Day, and I wish you all the best going forward. We know that good fathers build strong families, and strong families make good citizens, healthy communities, and thriving nations. When I became Prime Minister of St. Vincent and the Grenadines a mere 7 months ago, I embraced the honor and the opportunity bestowed upon me to at once lead and serve, with all the attendant obligations and possibilities. As part of that, I inherited the position of Chair of the OECS Authority. So, as Dr. Jules mentioned, I inherited both offices at the same time. One entrusted to me by my own people in St. Vincent and the Grenadines, and the other entrusted to me by our family of nations. I have sought to manage these two hefty roles with the care and seriousness they require. But how time has flown. Now, when I feel like I am truly getting the hang of it, I must, in keeping with the mandated rotation schedule for the chair of the authority, pass the chairman's baton to my brother, Prime Minister Gaston Brown, as Antigua and Barbuda assumes the role of chair of the authority. Further, in my remarks here, I intend to do what I have done throughout these months as chair, and that is to present honestly about what we have done together, and in so doing, also signal what Prime Minister Brown and his able team will inherit and will carry forward. As I intimated a couple minutes ago, the dual roles, one of national and the other of regional character, brought specific responsibilities that demanded my time and attention. But I also saw with greater clarity that the two responsibilities were not competing one against the other. They were, in fact, complementary. That is, the things that my people at home called for, our small island, developing country cannot achieve by itself, but must work together with other neighbors to make them happen. Important things that include more affordable and sustainable energy, reliable and affordable air travel, a stronger voice in arenas where big powers play, resilience against natural disasters, especially powerful storms that do not check borders before they strike, nor do they remember which countries they struck only recently. Things that can only be achieved together, if they are to be achieved at all. So, in serving the OECS well, in dedicating my time and effort to meeting the important responsibility, I know that simultaneously I'm serving the interests of the people of St. Vincent and the Grenadines. This conviction has been a guiding principle for me in the short time that I have been in the position of chair of the authority. It will remain so as I continue to work with my colleagues to move forward with the mandate and agenda of the OECS. We are, as was said earlier, in a time of profound geopolitical uncertainty, arguably the most consequential our region has faced in a generation. The wider tensions in our hemisphere hold profound implications for our security, our energy supply, the cost of living, our migration flows, and our diplomatic relations. Small states like ours feel such disturbances most. What may be mere tremors for large nations are experienced as earthquakes by us, small island developing states. We therefore suffer the consequences most and for the longest. Very early on in the year, we were required to consider and navigate the delicate and serious matter of the request from our developing partner and friend, the United States, for our member countries, among others, to assist them in accepting persons deported from the United States who are not our own citizens. We are still working through this matter very carefully because it holds serious implications for our economy, the safety of our people, the utilization of scarce resources, and for sovereignty. And recognizing these implications, the OECS countries, through the organization, agreed to work closely together to fashion the best possible outcome for our people. Accordingly, we agreed to establish a broad-based, high-level advisory team drawn from across the member states to carry on technical discussions amongst themselves that guided our negotiations with the US individually and collectively. During this year, we also changed the rhythm of our own work to match the rhythm of events. In ordinary times, the OECS Authority meets twice a year. That's what the treaty requires. But these are not ordinary times. So rather than wait for our mandated time in which to meet, we agreed that we would convene in caucus as often as the circumstances required. So we met in January in St. Lucia, when I chaired my first meeting. And I want to thank Prime Minister Pierre of St. Lucia for assisting in hosting that meeting, for recognizing what was needed in the moment, and for delivering. I also thank my fellow heads for their support and encouragement. Not knowing what to expect then, that support and encouragement meant a lot to me. In a region that prizes sovereignty, you showed me that sovereignty and solidarity are not opposites, that we can work very closely together for each other's benefit. And the authority met again in special session in March and have kept the lines of communication open through the use of technology to host virtual meetings. We act upon the knowledge that a small region cannot afford to be slow to act when the world is moving fast. And so we resolved to be quick, to be coordinated, and to keep our people informed, to assure them honestly and often that we work for decisions that are in their best interest. I spoke briefly a while ago about the Director General and the staff of the Commission, but I must say more here. To the Director General, His Excellency Didacus Jules, and to the professional staff of the OECS Commission, thank you for your support and especially for aiding us in the transition as our new government in St. Vincent and the Grenadines took over the work in the authority and the other roles in the organization. The Commission did not leave my new cabinet to guess about the functions and the business of the organization. You came and you briefed us on where the all-important integration project stands, what has been built, what is on the way, and what is at stake. You did it in the true spirit of regional service. Now, what did we accomplish or attempt to during the term? I won't recite everything. Much of what I will mention was not finished under my hand, but was advanced and set in motion. First, we kept faith with the central idea of this organization, that we are stronger when we work together. You have heard Dr. Didacus Jules say that repeatedly, and we all know it intrinsically, that we must put our differences aside and work together so that our limited resources and influence can make us more effective. A critical theme of our deliberations was the strategic use of our sovereignty and the influence to leverage much greater benefit than we would have if we acted alone. We also focused on ways of accessing alternative sources of capital and ways to initiate and finance transformational projects of a scale that no single country could successfully pursue alone. We also focused on ways of accessing. In that spirit, this authority engaged seriously with a proposal from the European Union for an energy and digital connectivity initiative, a regional plan involving an energy grid and digital submarine cables designed to harness our geothermal, solar, and wind energy resources. This will help us to ease the enormous fuel bills we pay to import petroleum products, and may even put us in a position in time to export clean energy. We applauded the vision, but we also did what prudent stewards of fragile economies must do. We are insisting that such an initiative be structured so that it does not saddle our member states with new, unmanageable debt. The elements of this initiative are still unfolding, but they show great promise. We confronted also the difficult and persistent reality of our inadequate air transport. The collapse of Liat compounded the problem of getting from one country to another in the sub-region, reliably and affordably. This authority took up in earnest the proposal for a new jointly owned airline, pooling assets, drawing where possible from funds already within our reach, rather than on fresh borrowing, and insisting that it be managed on sound business principles that make it efficient and therefore sustainable. That work is not done. It awaits decisions beyond today. But we moved from lament to plan. And with goodwill and persistence, we will move it further. We worked to deepen our partnerships beyond our shores. Under my chairmanship, we began to deliberate efforts to modernize and strengthen the partnership between the OECS and Canada, a structured framework for cooperation on climate resilience financing, on the transition to sustainable energy, on food security, and security cooperation against transnational crime. We are in the early stages of this initiative, but undeniably, we advanced it. And we engaged new instruments of development finance designed to move us away from projects that are piecemeal towards integrated, finance-ready portfolios that seek to treat natural capital and our resilience investment as the economic assets that can be used to leverage new sources of development financing. This is an exciting new initiative. And we reaffirmed our common positions on matters from the reform of our citizenship by investment programs to the introduction of traveler biometrics that will make our borders safer while making it easier for travelers, especially our own people, to engage with us. We also kept our hands on the work that touches ordinary lives directly. The labor mobility arrangements that open seasonal employment abroad for our farmers and workers, and the steady, unglamorous task of strengthening our governance of programs on which our economies depend, including the move towards an independent regional authority to regulate the citizenship by investment programs so that they achieve the highest standards. While we have our challenges, progress is being made. We can do better. However, we need renewed political will and energy to move forward faster and with greater certainty. The times demand it. Our circumstances require it. While we have our challenges, we can overcome them and work collectively within the OECS and other organs within our Caribbean to make a better life for the people of our region. Problem issues are many, but the tasks are not insurmountable. Transportation among our member countries is still too expensive and too unreliable. The effects of this problem are obvious and damaging, both politically and economically. Other tough issues remain in limbo. For over a decade and a half, we have had free movement of people among member countries. Yet, we have not completed a like regime for movement of goods and are sorely lagging on the issue of contingent rights for our citizens. Nevertheless, the OECS remains a worthwhile enterprise. The enthusiasm of earlier years may have dimmed somewhat, but we must never doubt the enduring appeal and relevance of the organization. Our neighbors see it, and many wish to join or to intensify their relationship. It is therefore necessary, and beyond that, it's desirable that we redouble our efforts to make this project work. We do so because of the many benefits it brings to us now and the greater benefits that it can bring in the near future for our people. And so, I come now to the pivotal act itself. By the rotation system that governs the organization under the treaty, the chairmanship of this authority now passes from St. Vincent and the Grenadines into the able and capable hands of the Honorable Gaston Brown and the people of Antigua and Barbuda. My dear brother, I wish you all the success in the world as you take on this challenge. I know that you are capable and that you will meet it with flying colors. We're all depending on you. You have my full support, and I am certain the other heads have or will commit likewise. Let us go forward together. May God continue to bless us all. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Friday. As you prepare to hand over the chairmanship of the authority to Antigua and Barbuda, the region expresses its sincere gratitude for your outstanding service and exemplary leadership. We have another cultural performance for you. At this time, I invite the Bailey Dance Group Just before we call on the dance group, we welcome the Premier of the British Virgin Islands, Dr. Natalia Wheatley. Welcome, Dr. Wheatley. We now call on the ballet dance group to do a performance for us. Slight technical difficulties. Just press all the buttons, Marlon. Following the presentation from the dance group of this cultural performance, we will have the remarks, the address from the incoming chairman of the authority, Antigua and Barbuda's Prime Minister. We thank the Baila Dance Group for that presentation. Ladies and gentlemen, our next speaker requires little introduction. He is a leader whose vision, determination, and unwavering belief in the potential of his people have transformed Antigua and Barbuda and elevated its standing on the regional and international stage. A few weeks ago, the people of Antigua and Barbuda delivered to him and his administration a resounding electoral victory, a powerful endorsement of his leadership and of his government's ambitious agenda for national transformation. That victory was not merely a political achievement, it was a vote of confidence in a vision encapsulated in the theme Renaissance, a new era of progress and prosperity. Under his stewardship, Antigua and Barbuda has embarked upon a remarkable renaissance characterized by sustained economic growth, record investments in infrastructure, expanded access to education and healthcare, advances in digital transformation, and an unwavering commitment to uplifting the lives of ordinary citizens. Today, the nation speaks confidently of a renaissance because it is witnessing that renaissance. And as he prepares to assume the chairmanship of the OECS, many across our region are asking whether the remarkable transformation unfolding in Antigua and Barbuda can inspire a broader movement, an OECS renaissance, an era marked by deeper integration, innovation, resilience, and shared prosperity for all of our peoples. Our next speaker is uniquely positioned to help shape that future. He is the political leader of the Antigua Labour Party. He is the Member of Parliament for the constituency of St. John's City West. He serves as Prime Minister and Minister for Finance, Corporate Governance, and Public-Private Partnerships. And today, he assumes the chairmanship of the OECS Authority, carrying with him a vision not only for Antigua and Barbuda, but for the wider Eastern Caribbean. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in warmly welcoming the Prime Minister of Antigua and Barbuda and incoming Chairman of the OECS Authority, the Right Honorable Gaston A. Brown.
Thank you very much, Mr. Master of Ceremony. I thank you for your kind words, and I certainly acknowledge our Governor General's Deputy, Sir Clay Roberts, my colleague heads, and of course, the respective ministers and all of the other distinguished ladies and gentlemen. Special good afternoon to everyone. And let me apologize for hosting this event on perhaps the most inopportune time, on a Sunday afternoon and on Father's Day. But I certainly thank you for coming out, and it was unavoidable because the heads had scheduling conflicts, and we have two other meetings to follow, back-to-back meetings. We have the CARICOM heads meeting, which will be in less than 2 weeks, followed immediately by the Eastern Caribbean Bank meeting, Monetary Council meeting in Dominica. So had it not been for those two other meetings, we certainly would not have had this particular event on Father's Day. So we apologize for taking you away from your families, because, you know, we promote having strong families. strong families result in strong nations. You know, today we are here to celebrate 45 years of the OECS Union. In fact, it is easily one of the most successful unions globally, and there's no doubt that we have made significant progress over the years. In fact, when the OECS Union was first conceived, it was Celeste Bird, who was one of the architects at the time, who at a predecessor meeting for the West Indies Council would have indicated to OECS countries that they should fight to become independent, but at the same time should promote a culture of interdependence, one of cooperation, one in which we will pool our resources in order to be more effective, to literally deal with the challenges, the global challenges at the time. But there's no doubt that the global challenges have become more intense, and that we are living in a significantly different world compared to, let's say, 4.5 decades ago. But in any event, one of the major areas in which we have succeeded and would have made significant progress is in the area of functional cooperation. And there are a number of institutions that were established by our forebears, the founders of the OECS, institutions that have served us well and would have shown that we are better off cooperating with each other than to act independently. And I'll spend a little time to speak about a few of those institutions. So, for example, we have the Eastern Caribbean Central Bank, in which we have pooled our financial resources to include our reserves, and obviously we've been able to keep our currency extremely strong. In fact, our currency traditionally has been stronger than other Caribbean currencies. In fact, while other currencies were fluctuating and losing value over the decades, the Eastern Caribbean currency remains strong, has been pegged at 2.7 EC to 1 US. And this has been the case for the last 50 years. 50 years of sustaining a currency at a peg of 2.7 EC to 1. That is certainly significant. We also have the common procurement mechanism in which we purchase pharmaceuticals together, and that in itself would have resulted in millions of dollars in savings for OECS countries, as we would have pooled our resources and would have gone to these major multinational corporations to purchase pharmaceuticals. Now, clearly, if we had gone alone, we would not have been able to negotiate the reduced pricing that we have benefited from for the last several years. So it has shown very clearly that by pooling our resources, that these institutions are benefiting the region. We also have the Eastern Caribbean Supreme Court. And again, that is another sustaining institution that has been delivering good judgments that span across all 8 countries, or 9 for that matter, to include the British Virgin Islands, and judgments that sustain themselves in every jurisdiction. In fact, the quality of the judgments coming out of the Eastern Caribbean Supreme Court has been extremely good compared to any other jurisdiction. So again, we should be very proud of that institution. And we also have ECHA. And ECHA has achieved world-class standards, better than most regional countries, to the extent that we enjoyed Category 1 status in this country. Unfortunately, we lost it for a few years. But I'm told that we have plugged the gaps, and that we are literally now in a position in which we should have a resumption of Category 1 status later this year. So we are looking forward for sure to resuming Category 1 status. Again, these are institutions that have served us very well, and they're proof of a simple truth, that what we cannot do alone, we can certainly accomplish together. And that principle has brought us this far, and it must continue to guide our future. I've said to my colleagues, for example, that these institutions that I spoke about, that they were literally created by our forerunner leaders, those who started this movement. But we also, as the contemporary leaders, we must also show that we can cooperate and we can also build institutions. The reality is, we have more resources than those who came before us. Many of us are better trained. And if you're better trained and we have more resources, it means that we too can establish sustaining institutions for the benefit of the OECS people. And I certainly have a number of suggestions that I'll share with my colleagues today. In fact, we've been discussing many of these suggestions prior. In fact, the outgoing chairman, my dear brother, Prime Minister Friday, would have spoken about several of these initiatives. Now, I said earlier that the world that we live in today is significantly different from the one 45 years ago. And we are living through profound geopolitical recalibration, great power competition, regional wars with global consequences, fragmented supply chains, retreating multilateralism, and the deployment of economic coercion as an instrument of foreign policy. In fact, the very issue about third country nationals, we're not cooperating on our own volition. We have been coerced to take these deportees, coerced by the great United States. And if we don't cooperate, they punish us. Many of us are resisting to make sure that they do not send us any criminal elements. And as I have said to them, as the Prime Minister of Antigua and Barbuda, I cannot willingly cooperate with any other power, any country, to destroy our beautiful Twin Island state. And we have insisted that we will not accept any criminal elements, and that at the same time, we want to limit the amount of individuals who they send to this country. Again, we want to be cooperative, so we are not being uncooperative here. But this idea that they could send us 120 individuals, we have said to them that is totally unacceptable. And we have sent them a counter proposal. We said that we'll accept 10 annually, no more than 10. So I hope that this will not result in any acrimony and further restrictions, but that they will respect our position and respect our sovereign right to determine how many of those individuals we accept. Now, within the region, the issue of cost of living continues to weigh heavily on our people, driven largely by high energy costs and external shocks beyond our control. For small island states, these geopolitical issues, the issue of rising fuel prices and cost of living generally, they are existential. And to quote Benjamin Franklin, we either hang together or assuredly hang separately. So take your pick. The International Peace Institute and leading research institutions have recently affirmed that for small states, multilateralism is not an option. It is a necessity. Small states can preserve autonomy and influence only by deepening networked cooperation. And that is what we're hoping that this current year of the OECS will do, that we will deepen cooperation within the OECS, and that we will also expand our network globally. Now, in a fragmented world, OECS countries acting alone are exposed and vulnerable. Acting together, we are a collective entity of approximately 625,000 people, with a shared currency, a unified judiciary, a common civil aviation authority, ECA, a collective pharmaceutical purchasing system, and an assembly of elected parliamentarians, an integration architecture second in depth only to the European Union. However, we must re-engineer the OECS Commission into a leaner, faster, and more effective institution that is fit for purpose. This is a conversation that I've had with the Director General, a very frank discussion about ensuring that the Commission becomes leaner, faster, and certainly more effective to better serve the people of the OECS. So accordingly, I've done so privately, and I'm doing so publicly. I'm asking the Director General to develop a reform plan that improves delivery, reduce costs, and strengthen the Commission's ability to better serve our people. Let me speak to the United States and the issue of trade and the cost of barriers to include the restrictions. No one has addressed today can avoid the recent actions of the United States government with respect to the movement of our citizens. I address this with respect for the genuine immigration challenges that the United States faces. We acknowledge the sovereign right of all states to determine their border security policies. We ask only that such rights be exercised with due regard for a historically close and mutually beneficial relationship and for the concrete economic consequences that flow from these restrictions. Here is a fact too often overlooked. The United States runs a significant trade surplus with our region. In 2024, the U.S. surplus in services trade with Latin America and the Caribbean reached almost $40 billion US. That's billion. Our people purchase American goods, use American financial services, and send their children to American universities. We are beneficial partners for the American economy, not adversaries to be restricted. When OECS business people cannot travel to the United States to attend trade fairs, to negotiate contracts, and build commercial relationships, it is American exporters and service providers who lose orders. The World Travel and Tourism Council projected that international visitor spending in the United States would fall by approximately $12.5 billion US in 2025 alone. The Caribbean restrictions are part of that broader and damaging pattern. And I'll say here too that our largest diaspora is in the United States. And we need to ensure that the diaspora here in the Caribbean, and certainly our people in the United States, that it can move freely. They have familial relations, and from time to time, they need to engage their family in different meets, birthdays, anniversaries. So these restrictions are backward-looking. And that is why I'm speaking frankly, while respecting the position of the United States, to state here that they result in a loss of business in the United States, and at the same time does not help to strengthen the bilateral relationship between countries as well as the multilateral relationship between Caribbean countries and the United States. So the Caribbean restrictions are part of that broader and damaging pattern, as I said, and our message to Washington is a constructive one. We share the United States' commitment to security, to the rule of law, and transparent governance. And we particularly stand with the U.S. in opposing drug trafficking and organized crime. That is our mutual interest. We too want to make sure that we have safe and secure societies. We look forward to continued engagement with the United States, confident that stronger travel, trade, and people-to-people ties will further strengthen our long-standing partnership to the mutual benefit of our peoples. Again, these engagements are mutually beneficial. And again, we are asking the United States to reconsider their position on Caribbean countries that they have considered for many years as their third border. And I want to turn to the issue of our neighborhood that we have not yet explored. Now, my dear colleagues, let us consider ourselves in the neighborhood in which we live. The OECS, as I said before, has 625,000 persons, and it sits within CARICOM with approximately 17 million people, in which Haiti accounts for 11 million. But stretching to our south and west lies a hemisphere, or a region for that matter, of 447 million Spanish-speaking neighbors, 40 times the size of all of CARICOM, with whom our commercial ties remain frustratingly thin. ECLAC has consistently recommended that Caribbean nations develop trade partnerships with Latin American counterparts and take advantage of regional value chains that now dominate production. We must develop a far more proactive strategy toward our Latin American neighborhood that includes, and I'll add here, frankly speaking, fluency in Spanish. Panama demands our particular attention. The Panama Canal handles more than $33 billion in yearly trade volume. The Cologne Free Trade Zone is the largest free trade zone in the Western Hemisphere. On food, the Caribbean imports 80 to 90% of what it consumes or eats. Central America offers proximity, agricultural complementarity, and established food production chains. An OECS strategy that builds sourcing partnerships with Central American producers, uses Panama as a transshipment point, and develops shared regional emergency stockpiles could fundamentally reduce our cost of living and transform our resilience. If we are serious about reducing our overdependence on a single dominant import market, then Panama is the natural gateway for alternative sourcing across Central America, South America, and Asia Pacific. I now speak briefly to the issue of OECS air in order to connect OECS people, and certainly the broader CARICOM population. On air connectivity, I have already advanced a proposal for OECS air, a dedicated sub-regional carrier leveraging the Eastern Caribbean Central Bank's unclaimed deposits and possibly the EU Interreg funding. In fact, I'm told that we have about $50 million in unclaimed deposits. These are deposits that people have not owned or requested for over 20, 30 years. They're sitting there, they're not being employed. These should be invested for the joint benefit of the OECS people. A region that cannot move its people efficiently and effectively cannot integrate commercially. So I want my colleague heads to understand the importance of having a reliable airline so that we can move people and even to move goods within the sub-region and beyond. There should be no more hesitation in acting for what we know is right. And I want to say to my heads as well, I am aware that there are low-level individuals in their respective governments who are fighting this proposal, but you need to lead. This should be a decision of the heads. And as I said before, our forebears made decisions and created institutions that are sustaining. Why can't we, in the 21st century, with far more resources, establish a sustaining airline, OECS air, for the benefit of OECS people and the Caribbean region in general? I say to you that we have the ability so to do. What it requires is a political will, and I have no doubt that the will is there. And notwithstanding all of the chatter that will come from low-level officials, let us avoid the noise and make the best decision in the best interest of the people of the OECS. In fact, I say this much. On the basis that we're able to connect our people, we will be able to show the broader CARICOM how it's done. And I think we can achieve it. I now turn to the issue of CARICOM, the blue economy, and energy. In fact, my colleague head, outgoing chairman, spoke about the issue of energy cooperation, and I certainly want to weigh in on that issue. The OECS must remain CARICOM's most dynamic sub-regional engine. But let me be frank, the wider CARICOM integration project has too often suffered from what the IMF has called an implementation deficit, a gap between political commitment and actual delivery. the OECS model to include the Eastern Caribbean Central Bank, the ECSC, the PPS, the ECCAA. This is a model that CARICOM should study and, where applicable, replicate. We must press with a unified OECS voice for the reinvigoration of the Caribbean Development Fund, the elimination of non-tariff barriers that block our exporters, and strong foreign policy coordination that prevents external powers from exploiting divisions among us. And I'll turn briefly to the blue economy, and we should claim the OECS portion of the ocean. We're considered to be small economies, but on the blue economy, the OECS has jurisdiction over approximately 500,000 square kilometers of ocean space, 80 times larger than its combined landmass. The Caribbean blue economy generates approximately $5 billion annually in seafood, $39.9 billion in oil and gas, and $57 billion in tourism. For too long, we have had our backs to the ocean. We must shift the paradigm and to recognize that we are not necessarily small island developing states. We are large ocean states. That is where our competence lies, and we cannot continue to have our back to the oceans. We must sustainably harness those resources for the benefit of our people. So I call on this authority to direct the OECS Commission to develop within the next 12 months. In fact, that may be too long, within the next 6 months, a consolidated OECS Blue Economy investment portfolio of specific bankable joint investment opportunities structured for co-investment by OECS governments alongside international development partners. And I also want to make the point here too that there are many underexploited and unexploited opportunities within the OECS. And there's no reason why our private sectors, as well as the various governments, cannot partner to exploit them. This notion that we're waiting for foreign direct investments, I don't know why we should, because if we combine our efforts, our resources, our expertise, there are many opportunities that we can exploit without going abroad. And the benefit of that is that the profits will stay in our region and will be utilized to fund more robust growth and development. So let us get creative. Let us think sub-regional, and let us take the frame-breaking decisions that will help to advance the growth and development of our respective peoples, although as far as I'm concerned, we're really one people. I have personally entered discussions with a number of my colleague heads. In fact, on the issue of energy, Dominique is building CARICOM's first geothermal plant. St. Kitts and Nevis is advancing a 30-megawatt geothermal facility in Nevis. And I've entered into discussions with the government of St. Kitts and Nevis. Even had discussions today with my dear friend, the distinguished Premier of Montserrat. And we have had discussions through the European Union as to how Antigua and Barbuda could take an equity participation in one of those projects, possibly the Nevis project, with the longer-term vision of an undersea cable supplying Antigua and Barbuda with clean, baseload geothermal power. So in that case, we don't have to be importing all this fossil fuel and to be subjected to the vagaries of fossil fuel pricing. In fact, many of you may not be aware, but for the last 4 months, we have been subsidizing our petroleum prices to the tune of $1.50 US per gallon. Even at one point, the diesel that was utilized at APUA to generate electricity. But you would have noted that the price at the pump has not increased. In fact, we now have the lowest petroleum price at $14.25 in the Caribbean, barring the two countries that produce fossil fuel, and that's Trinidad and Tobago and Guyana. And our price differential is not even significantly different. I think they are between $12 and $13. So you can see the extra effort that my government would have undergone in order to protect our people. But when we transition into geothermal and we're able to utilize that natural resource that is freely available within the sub-region, then we can certainly eliminate or at least significantly reduce the need for fossil fuels and to get cheaper, cleaner power. And I want to propose that we establish, or I propose that this authority formally endorses the concept of the intergovernmental energy joint ventures that we have spoken about informally, and that there should be direct joint equity participation by OECS governments in energy infrastructure as a strategic instrument of integration. Now, many of us, we get funding from the European Union. When they split it up among 6 of us, it's like a little pittance. If we're able to combine the full amount and we perhaps ask them to give us an advance over a 10-year period, we can use that to catalyze investments in development of this geothermal project that will ultimately serve to the benefit of the OECS people. And when you look at the amount of fossil fuels that we import into the OECS, I guarantee you that you probably have a payback maybe within a 5-year period, whatever funding we need to borrow in order to bring these technologies to commercial viability. I believe that we'll be able to pay it back within, I'd say, a 5-year period. So let me make the point here too that this kind of cooperation that we're seeking is not charity. It is an investment to reduce our energy vulnerability, to reduce prices and increasing competitiveness, because when we drive down energy prices, clearly manufacturing will thrive. People can literally live better, able to reduce their cost of living. And even in terms of, in the case of Antigua and Barbuda, for sure, providing power for our desalination plants, or myriad desalination plants that consume a lot of energy, so that we drive down our costs and to make more funding available, create more fiscal space for socioeconomic development. Now, I also want to state here that this level of cooperation will deepen integration more effectively than any treaty text. This is what you call real cooperation that will benefit the people. Now, in closing, and I know you all want to go home to be with your families, so this is actually an abridged version of my speech. The theme is one vision, one voice, one future. I literally just preceded. And I'd say that at 45, an organization like a person knows its capability. The OECS has proven that shared institutions work. And that is why I am advocating strenuously for us to establish more shared institutions for the benefit of the OECS people. The EC dollar, the ECSC, the PPS, the ECCAA, ECA, these are the results of political will, backed by institutional design, sustained over decades by leaders who understood that what we cannot do alone, we can accomplish together. The Eastern Caribbean is a civilization forged over the most difficult of human circumstances. It has produced a people of extraordinary resilience, creativity, and talent. The OECS is that civilization's institutional expression. That's right. The Commission is our civilization's institutional expression. When we deepen integration, we're not surrendering sovereignty. We're actually pooling it. Again, we have the institutions that have shown that. We're saying that, as our predecessors said 45 years ago, that the sovereignty of a small state exercised in isolation is worth less than the sovereignty of that same state exercised in concert with its neighbors. In unity, there is not just strength. There is relevance, leverage, and the capacity to shape our destiny rather than have it shaped for us by larger and external forces. One vision, one voice, one future. The theme, again, very apropos, and that is what this anniversary demands of us to achieve resilient prosperity. That is the objective to which we must commit. And I end this afternoon by again thanking you for coming out on Father's Day. And God bless the people of the OECS. God bless the OECS Commission. I thank you.
Thank you most kindly, Prime Minister, for your presentation this evening, and we look forward to your chairmanship of the organization for the next 12 months. Ladies and gentlemen, we're pleased that we have the Antigua and Barbuda Defense Force Band with us, and they are going to do a presentation for us at this moment. Thank you very much, ABDF Orchestra. Ladies and gentlemen, we have come to the close of our opening ceremony for today. This has been an evening of significance and substance, and we are truly grateful for the privilege of sharing it with you. We extend our sincere thanks to His Excellency, the Governor General's Deputy, our esteemed heads of state and government, our distinguished delegates, and all guests in attendance for your presence and participation in this meaningful occasion. At this time, I invite you to stand as we say goodbye this evening, and thanks to His Excellency, the Governor General, as he departs. Following the departure of His Excellency, we will remain standing for the playing of the OECS song. Following the playing of the OECS song, we ask all heads to remain as we will have the official photograph taken right here on the stage. OECS song. Thank you most kindly, ladies and gentlemen. You may be seated and observe the official photograph, or you may mingle. We ask heads to stand in front of their respective flags for the official photograph.
You've just been watching our live coverage of the opening ceremony of the 78th meeting of the OECS Authority, where Prime Minister Gaston Brown has assumed the leadership. Of course, he's taking over from St. Vincent Prime Minister, Dr. Godwin Friday. The Prime Minister laid out his plans for the upcoming year. Up next, the ABS Evening News. Stay tuned.